Hey everyone, we're back. Welcome to GameFace episode 158 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. Everyone's birthdays are over.
Yeah.
We should be good to go for the next several weeks, at least a foreseeable future.
Sam's birthday.
Sam's is done, you're done, I'm done, Pac's done. We're all good. So the show should be rolling on regularly going forward. Today for some of you who are watching the archive of this, is the dawn of a new day for Sifted. Our brand new Patreon launches today, depending on when you're watching this. Tons of brand new tiers, brand new goals, brand new rewards. If you've checked out our Patreon in the past, I definitely suggest going back and checking it out again. There might be some tiers that you might be interested in. One of the big new tiers is You Own Me, which for $100 a month, you get an hour with me to do whatever you want. And one of you sifters, listen though, one of you sifters has been very smart with this. He has decided to pledge at that tier and then have me on his podcast. So if you're launching a podcast, you're doing something, you like to get me involved with it, maybe give you a little boost out of the gate, that's certainly one of the options for You Own Me. So lots of new stuff there. Give it a look. Hopefully you'll find some stuff that you like. Maybe you bump up your pledge, or maybe you'll just pledge for the first time. Either way would be awesome. Folks watching on YouTube, please check out our Patreon. If you can't do that, please hook us up with Twitch Prime. It literally takes a second, and you can give us a free $2.50 a month every single month, but you do have to re-up it. Those directions are down in the description. So it's been about a week and a half since we've done a show. We have tons of topics to talk about. I will say the show's weighted pretty heavily with Nintendo this week because a lot of stuff has been going down, but we also have a topic about Microsoft. We're going to talk about Anthem for the last time. So we have a great show, and I think there's something for everybody. But let's just jump straight into it, and we're going to talk first about Reggie.
The Reginator.
Reggie has retired from Nintendo.
His body is finished.
His body is no longer ready.
His body is ready to relax.
Now, do you believe that? Do you believe he's really going to just retire and not do anything and just hang out with the family? Or do you think he was just ready to move on from...
I think that might be what he intends, but Reggie seems like one of those people that's got to work.
He seems like a go-getter, yeah. It doesn't seem like the type that's going to be happy to sitting at home watching TV.
I don't know what he'll do next, but I'm sure it's not the last we've heard of him in some capacity. Maybe he won't be like an executive again, but I could see him like writing or like becoming
interesting.
Like the man was involved with crazy stuff for a long time. I'm sure he has some stories to tell.
Oh yeah, he could write a great book. He hasn't signed about 1 billion NDAs with Nintendo.
It would also, it would be kind of interesting to see him like. I don't know what he's into. I don't know him, personally, but like, he could kind of do like his own podcast where he brings people on and talks about games. Whatever he wants to do, he could do. But I feel like for the time being, he's just gonna run silent and enjoy life for a while because he's been in the upper echelons of Nintendo for 15 years now.
Yeah, since the end of the
through some real crazy times for that company, the ups and the downs and the ups again, and
and the downs again.
Yeah, he has kicked much ass and taken many names, and I can see why you would want to rest. He's not as young as he used to be.
Yeah, the day that he announced his retirement, we created a meme that said, "No more asses to kick, no more names to take." Didn't catch on, though, unfortunately. But here's the thing about Reggie that I think a lot of people forget, is that Reggie is not a video game lifer.
Yeah.
He got into the games industry 15 years ago when he got the job at Nintendo. He's a marketing guy.
Yeah, he came from, I want to say Pizza Hut. It was a pizza company.
Yeah, he worked for some other major corporation. I think you're right. I think it was a food company.
It was definitely pizza. I think I don't remember which one it was, but he I can't remember. I remember he was the one who introduced the Bigfoot pizza.
Oh, really?
Remember that? Like the giant...
yeah.
Like I remember that was like the thing he was like famous for when he first came on with Nintendo. I don't remember which pizza company that was.
I think that's Pizza Hut.
Was it Pizza Hut?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
But a lot of people don't realize that he has not been in the games industry his entire career. And
but
so,
like, it's a testament to his skill at it that you would never think that.
Well, it shows you how smart
he fit
he is.
right in.
Yeah, well, he's smart.
Yeah.
He picked it up very quickly, figured out what the audience was like, what the audience wants. He figured out what Nintendo was about and what makes Nintendo appeal to its fans.
And more accurately, what Nintendo should be about and what it had kind of lost in those years before he came on. Because I remember the 2004 E3 Nintendo press conference, which I think is
what you're seeing right now. Look at how young Reggie looks.
Young, fresh-faced, and full of hope.
And this was only, 13 years ago? No more than that.
This is 15 years ago.
It's like his first year on the job, I guess.
Yeah, it was the first time we saw him, really.
How about how crappy Nintendo's press conference is?
Oh, yeah. Well, and also like how crappy it had been. And all of a sudden, this dude...
Look at these graphics.
All of a sudden, this huge guy comes out on stage, and he's just like, we're about kicking ass, taking names, and making games. And everyone's like, whoa! Like the audience, this was the one that built from, everyone kind of settled down for their usual, kind of corporate presentation. And Reggie just comes out and starts just rapid-firing trailers at people.
He swore at a Nintendo presser.
And we're like, what the heck?
Even though ass really isn't a swear word.
And then, of course, not anymore. But at the time, saying it at a Nintendo event was unheard of.
Yeah.
And then of course at the end he did the one more thing and ran the Twilight, what would become the Twilight Princess trailer, and grown men were crying on the floor of the theater. It was like nothing I'd ever seen, and I remember seeing the first shot of that, and I realized what it was when I saw the horse legs. And I turned to my friend I was standing with. I'm like, "Holy shit, they did it!
Yeah,
they made the realistic Zelda was the the holy grail for Zelda fans for years, especially in the wake of Wind Waker, which was awesome.
It was great.
But that was the thing that people have been wanting since that Space World demo for the N64 or the GameCube.
No, it's for GameCube. Yeah. The revolution.
And there it was. And there it was.
It is trippy watching. In fact, just putting together this B-roll was a nostalgic trip for me.
Yeah.
And just for instance, if you look at this hard enough, you can see my silhouette in the front at this press conference. It was interesting to see how Reggie had changed, how Nintendo had changed, how the industry had changed, how my life has changed.
How much better the lighting got.
Yeah. It's just
look at the colored light. Look at the. The effort there is no precedent for that.
Yeah.
This is where it started to become a circus.
Yeah, this is where it started to spin out of control.
Yeah.
This is where Nintendo went from 400 people in the LA live studio to this big gigantic cavernous.
Yeah, and also across the way, the same E3, Sony's still putting on the executives coming out listing numbers for 20 minutes and then talking about Cyber World.
Yeah.
For Reggie turned it into kind of a party. It was you could feel the electricity kind of in the room, building in a way that just didn't happen at those things, especially not Nintendo one, because Nintendo was so buttoned down.
Yeah, buttoned up, you mean.
And I remember the first one I went to was in a basement room in a hotel downtown. Yeah. There was 40 people there.
I remember trying to get the live stream working in that room. It was a nightmare.
That was where Sessler did the first live English interview with Miyamoto.
Yeah.
After that, it was where they debuted Smash Brothers and everything, and where the Nintendo Joe guy got up and tried to ask that weird question in Japanese. No one could understand him.
They never did a Q&A after the press conference.
No, that was the end of Q&A
ever again.
They never did that again.
That was it.
Because the question turned out to be, do you like working at Nintendo?
Yeah, yeah.
And Miyamoto was like, oh.
I've been here for my 80 years. Yeah, of course, I love it here.
It's what do you... It's I created one of the most enduring things in culture. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. No, I'm going to go to Sega next year. Yeah. I'm tired of succeeding.
I think I agree with you in one respect about what Reggie is going to do. I think he will take a little time, but I honestly would not be surprised if Reggie takes a job outside of games somewhere else. He'll go to Kraft or some other major corporation, and he'll probably do a great job there. But
he could frankly do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah,
any company would probably be happy to have him.
Yeah, because he has the data to back up the job that he did. Let's talk a little bit about the job that Reggie did. What was it that he was best at?
I think he was best at putting a human face on a company that is occasionally very hard to read.
Yeah. Well, if you go back, rewind to the GameCube era. Think about Nintendo then. There was Miyamoto. Enuma you'd see every once in a while, but it was really just like Miyamoto. And then, of course, you had, Nintendo of Japan, which was this very stodgy, closed off type of organization. I mean, it all sort of filters down from Yamauchi.
Yeah.
As they call him, he had the pimp ham, and the way he ran Nintendo, he was very ruthless.
And there is a ruthlessness.
And very isolationist.
Yeah. There is a ruthlessness in the corporate culture of Nintendo. Ask anyone who was at Retro when Metroid Prime 1 was made, and they'll tell you, and it's for the good of the product. I mean, it's not like it's motiveless or just being mean to be mean. They're doing it for a reason. But it's, Reggie was able to kind of make at least the Western face of Nintendo a little more inviting, a little more warm, and kind of your favorite uncle is here to tell you about video games kind of thing. There's a little bit of that to that, I think. And he was just sort of a very positive presence, and nothing rattled the man. Like he was just there to present Nintendo as this very positive, very upbeat, company that wanted to make sure you had fun, and that was the whole point. Was we were about making fun games and bringing people together to play them. I remember it was the year that they did the thing where E3 was everywhere, was over in Santa Monica in like 14 different hotels or whatever. We had to go interview him first thing in the morning, and we get there, and the crew doesn't have, because we were all working out of a home base. The crew didn't have any tapes with them, so we couldn't shoot yet. And so we had to wait and we were so early that no one was at the home base yet, so we had to wait for people to show up and then bring tapes to us. So we had like 40 minutes with nothing to do, and Reggie's like, let's play video games, and gets up and starts showing Adam all the Wii Fit stuff and playing. They just sat there and played games together for almost an hour. Almost any other executive in this industry would be like, "Really, you're wasting my time."
No, he go way back in his room. Most executives would.
Yeah, Reggie's like, well, we got time to play, and that's what we did. We played.
I tweeted this the day he announced his retirement, but just countless times, I saw him completely away from the press, completely away from cameras. He wasn't doing it because somebody may see it, but just him interacting with fans, just being a friend or playing a game with them or whatever. You do not see executives mingle with the fans hardly at all. And it was effortless for him. And going back to what you were saying about what his biggest achievement was, I think his biggest achievement was helping with Iwata transform Nintendo of Japan. Because I feel like Reggie came onto the scene. He was this affable, friendly, still competitive, still had an edge to him, but he was fun.
Oh yeah, I mean he was still playing to win, but he wasn't going to step on you to do that. Right.
And I think Nintendo of Japan saw that and was like, okay, because he became a star overnight. The kicking ass and taking names thing from day one.
It was the most chatter about Nintendo in a post E3 week that I'd ever heard. It was. He turned around the perception of that company.
He changed the tone of the company almost immediately. And I think Nintendo of Japan saw that and started to change its tune. And I think we're just now seeing Nintendo relaxing its policies on YouTube. We can run Nintendo trailers now in GameFace and they don't get copyright strike. I think that is just one of a million trickle-down effects of the job that Reggie and Iwata did in concert to kind of turn NOJ around and make them a more fan-friendly, consumer-friendly company, and one that people feel comfortable getting excited about. Nintendo was just kind of this weird, I don't even know how to explain what it was. It was mysterious, and I think in a lot of ways that's good, or at least it used to be good. And now I feel like with the way things are with social media and everybody can have their say on everything, I feel like that's the wrong tactic to take, and I think Nintendo has evolved to become a company that's more palatable to that new audience. And I think Reggie is a big reason why that happened.
Yeah, I don't think you get that Nintendo Direct where all the top Nintendo guys are Muppets without Reggie having been there.
No way. I think in a lot of ways, he was kind of the company leader for a lot of years there. I think the company at large was looking to him to make decisions. And, as Iwata became ill and wasn't as involved with the company anymore, I feel like he probably stepped in and filled that void. It's weird because you think about people in this industry and it's very easy to kind of pinpoint a very specific thing they did. This developer launched this game that was groundbreaking. This executive hired this team that did X, Y, and Z. This guy came up with an idea for hardware that ended up being copied by everybody. But with Reggie, there is no thing like that. It's more of an aura thing and who he was, his presence, him. Yeah, it really was him. It wasn't what he did, it's who he is.
Yeah.
That made a big difference for Nintendo.
And it's funny that, like, you know, like it does, you see from 2004 to like 2006 in the beginning of the Wii era, you see kind of like Nintendo's sort of outward-facing culture kind of changes from sort of that, like you said, that sort of mysterious monolith that they were for like most of the 90s to kind of accepting the idea that their fan base was very devoted and very willing to, like, you know, make Nintendo, the Nintendo as a brand kind of part of like their lifestyle more than just like a thing they enjoyed.
Well, they started, they started doing the directs.
Yeah,
they started doing the Treehouse stuff at E3.
Yeah, and Reggie had them kind of pushed to embrace that. And I think even at the time, like in the end, Nintendo was sort of ahead of the curve in terms of how brands interact with people on social media, because social media was
they went
thing
from
then.
last to first.
Yeah, like I don't think like, you know, I'm not saying that like Wendy's Twitter took a direct inspiration from Reggie Fils-Aime to like do what they do, but I think that tone was part of what Reggie introduced to Nintendo, and I can't recall another major company that had that at the time.
Yeah,
you know, he was a pioneer in that sense.
Now don't get me
and
wrong.
It worked.
Yeah,
it worked so well.
And don't get me wrong, Reggie did some amazing things in his position as well. Like when a lot of people would say, you know, it's time to ship the 3DS down the river or whatever, he saw, when he first came in, he saw better than anyone the power of Nintendo's handheld business, because then it was just gigantic. And I think he learned that his first year on the job, and that stuck with him the whole way through. Because people were like, oh, you know, why are you still pushing the 3DS? You got the Switch come in. Or he's like, oh, whatever, I'm putting out four new colors of the 3DS. Or we're making this crazy 2DS thing. Or we're going to make like the third iteration of the 3DS hardware with like a little, like, he kept pushing the envelope when a lot of people were like, well, Sony's bailed at that point. Sony had basically put out the Vita and then gave up like a year and a half later. Everyone else was telling them they're crazy for still producing a handheld, and Reggie just kept doubling down and being like, you know what, we'll put out a new color and we'll sell another 300,000, and he stayed the course. He learned very quickly. Yeah. And
I remember when they debuted the 3DS, like going to see that with him. Yeah, he was touring Adam and those guys, and like he was, you could tell he was like personally excited to show people this thing. Like and
even though the first version was a hunk of junk.
Yeah, but at the time it wasn't. It was a pretty. I remember looking into that screen and being like, "That's magic."
Yeah, magic. How is witchcraft? Yeah, how do you do that?
And Adam turns and goes, "How long have you been working on this?" And he goes, "Since the Virtual Boy." And like they've wanted to do a good 3D like handheld for as long as they've basically existed, and they think they finally got it. And it was like, and you could tell there was like real pride and excitement from him to be able to show.
It blew my mind the first time I looked at it. I was like, "What? 3D with no glasses? How do you do that?"
Yep.
Somehow they did it.
They did it, and they did
and
it
then they
better.
got rid of it.
Then they did it better, and then they stopped doing it.
Yeah, and then they just ditched the feature altogether for the later run, but. Yeah, I think we're gonna miss Reggie. Like, it always sucks when you lose a personality like that in history. Who's left now? Like, of the big three, none of them are as charismatic as Reggie.
No.
I mean, you think of Phil Spencer and Sean Layden. They're not.
They're fine, but they're no.
Yeah,
they're
fine.
No Reggie.
They're great people to put on a stage and talk about something, but
I don't know. A lot of the big personalities are gone now.
Yeah, I also feel like the industry just isn't as competitive as it used to be.
Yeah.
Like, there's really nobody kicking ass and taking names anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, can we work with you so that we can all make more money? Like, that's kind of where everything's going.
There's a lot less of a of that cutthroat. I mean, it was in the 2004, around that era, that kind of mid 2000s era, there was sort of that feeling of like there's only so much, like, you know, there's only so much market, and we got to fight for our piece of it.
Yeah.
And now there's more of a feeling of like, this is just kind of going to go on forever, right?
Yeah, it's like the console wars are only for the fanboys now. Like, the
Yeah.
companies don't really participate in it anymore, and it's dumb to participate in it anymore. You're going to make more money if you find ways to work with others so that you can just, and we're going to talk about it later.
Yeah, which is a later
there's
topic.
A topic later on where we're going to really talk about that. So, you know, I think Reggie, he did a good job of having one foot in the old Nintendo way, and then having the other foot in the future and driving Nintendo towards that future. And I don't know if Nintendo would be in the position it's in right now if it wasn't for Reggie.
I don't think they would. I think Reggie and Iwata are the key figures through that whole period, not just because they were in charge, but because they had the vision and they were able to work together to reinvent this company that I think a lot of people, if you ask them about that kind of thing, 10 years before, would never have thought that that company could be reinvented that way.
And all they really did was just connect with fans.
Yeah.
I mean, Iwata started doing the directs where he literally pointed at the camera and said, direct to you, you and me. It's me showing you Nintendo's hot shit. And then they do the Treehouse stuff where they actually show developers from Nintendo for the first time ever, other than Miyamoto.
Yeah, there was people. I mean, maybe some people might be too young to really remember the times in in the NES, Super Nintendo days, even the N64 days, where it was basically the Wonka factory.
Yeah.
You didn't see inside of it. No one came in or went out.
Except there were no golden tickets.
Yeah, it was no way to know.
There weren't even 5 or 6.
You didn't know who made this stuff. Didn't, there was no transparency at all.
Yeah, I mean, even Miyamoto back then was an unknown. He was making all these games, and most people didn't know who he was. So it's just been a huge tonal shift for Nintendo over the last 10 to 15 years. And it's paid off. It's had 2 gigantic hits. It's had the Wii. It's had the Switch. And I also admire that Reggie had to go through a tough time at Nintendo. The Wii U was a disaster. And I think him coming in at the tail end of the GameCube era helped him and prepared him for the inevitable sag during the Wii U era. And I think Nintendo in general did a much better job transitioning out of the Wii U into the Switch than it did transitioning out of its prior failed consoles. So
I don't think that's a question at all.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, how many companies could actually survive after a product like Wii U? Period.
Not a lot in this day.
I mean, not even just talk about games, just generally.
Just anything.
If you put that much into a product and it fails, what are your chances of survival after that?
Luckily, Nintendo's got a pretty big war chest.
Yeah.
To fall back on, but
yeah, I mean, it's got Apple money sitting in the bank. It's just billions and billions of dollars of cash. And Nintendo never does anything with it. It really doesn't. It never acquires anyone. It'll make little acquisitions here and there.
They bought Monolith. And,
and how many years ago was that?
Many. Quite a few.
Many. Yeah.
But, I think the key thing with Reggie for me is that he left the place better than he found it.
He absolutely did.
Which is all you can really ask in the end.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people who work at NOA that are very, very thankful for Reggie. Because NOA was basically just run by NOJ for decades. And then he came in and kind of added a little cachet to the point where, hey, they're kind of their own entity now. If you think back to Howard Lincoln, who was the head of NOA for years and years and years, he was the old guard. He was the guy that hated Sega, hated PlayStation, always made comments that were untrue, that would trying to make Nintendo look as good as possible. He was the old console system wars leader of Nintendo.
Look at all these things that never happened on the Wii.
Oh, I know. It blows my mind when I watch this trailer still. And I'm sure Nintendo, their out is, it didn't last as long as it was supposed to. And then a lot of things that they show in this that did come true ended up being nowhere near as compelling as it looked in this video. But
did that happen? Did that gun thing come out? I don't recognize that.
I don't know. I don't remember playing that. That's for sure.
No.
But there's a lot of things in this video that actually did come out.
That did happen, yeah.
But that was the example I was talking about when it's it wasn't as fun when you played it as it looked in this trailer.
It honestly didn't look all that fun to begin with.
Yeah. But, I mean, Reggie has left himself quite a legacy in the games industry. Well-deserved. I mean, he's been through it all. He's been through success. He's been through failures. He's been through a market essentially disintegrating that was 50% of Nintendo's business and still put themselves back on solid footing. And just on a personal level, the many times that I interacted with Reggie, that's a total mock-up of the controller right there, by the way. Look, that is fake. There's no analog sticks. It's totally fake. I never noticed that until years and years later. But just on a personal level, the many times I interacted with Reggie or saw him interacting, and in all honesty, for the most part, catching him when he didn't know anyone was looking, that to me is what impressed me the most about Reggie. I remember after they showed the Wii U at E3, all the journalists got to go back in this room in the back. and they had Wii U set up, and they were... Anyway, I could tell stories about that for days. But the reason I brought it up is because there were a lot of journalists from smaller outlets there, like, little fan sites or whatever, that had come to E3 and had gotten back there. And you could see that they were kind of like a fish out of water. They were intimidated. And I saw Reggie literally walk up to someone who looked intimidated and say, is everything all right? Like, what do you need? And I was like, what the hell's going on? Who is this guy? Like, this stuff doesn't happen in this industry anymore. And sure enough, it does when you have people like Reggie involved. So on a professional level, I thought he was great. On a personal level, I thought he was an excellent human being. Yeah. Obviously, I don't know him like that well.
Not that well, but I've never had any interaction with him that was not extremely positive. He's one of the nicest, outwardly, he's one of the nicest men I have ever met in this industry. And I've never heard anyone have a bad word to say about him. No. Never. The worst thing I've heard anyone say about him was Pac, when Pac said that he didn't like him because he would say controversial things about Nintendo. So he said he felt like Reggie avoided him. But Reggie didn't say anything bad about him or do anything bad. He just avoided him. So, yeah, it's a shame to see him go. I don't know. I mean, Bowser's fine. The replacement. What a name. He is a game guy. So is his name John Koopa in Japan? He has been at Nintendo for decades. He is a video games guy. Yeah. He has been in the industry his whole career. And I'm sure everyone who's there has, you spent 15 years learning from Reggie and seeing how he does things. I don't see anybody deciding, well, now it's time for a change. Like, no, you're going well. Like, I'm sure they'll continue the legacy. I just don't know if he's as charismatic as Reggie. I don't know if anyone is as charismatic as Reggie. I mean, you got to go into I don't know. I'm trying to think of other people that I would rank on that level in kind of the business world, and it just doesn't really exist. I think the thing too is that times have changed. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, you need a figurehead running your company now. You need somebody that people recognize, that people resonate with, that people like. That'll do this. Yeah, that'll do stuff like this and just don't care. It's like, I don't care if people think I'm a goof or whatever, because he knows ultimately it's going to help the product. It's going to help the company. And it'll be interesting to see the transition, but I think what I was saying about things changing is that there aren't big press conferences anymore. Mm-hmm. So Reggie was a really valuable tool to host Nintendo's big E3 press conference every year and handle all that stuff. That stuff doesn't really happen anymore. Now Nintendo Directs are handled mostly by people in Japan. Maybe Reggie jumps in for a little segue or something like that. But that's changed. So do you really need a guy like Reggie anymore to be kind of that front man? I mean, to an extent, I think you do. I think it helps, especially with Iwata not there anymore. It's a loss for them for sure. They're going to struggle, I think, to kind of find their feet in terms of presentational value in that regard. But luckily they have a strong lineup for the rest of the year, and the games will carry the year. Absolutely. The games will get you through it. Yep. So there you go. Reggie Fils-Aime retires from Nintendo. I think he'll come back and work again. I don't think it'll be in games. I think he'll work at some random corporation or whatever. Yeah, I think at some point some company will make him an offer that he can't refuse. Not in a threatening Godfather way, but make him an offer he can't refuse because it's going to be such an interesting thing to him. It's going to be a thing that he's like, oh, I really want to do that. Yeah, again, maybe it's going to be. And he's still young. Because it was a big change going from a Pizza Hut to a Nintendo. Yeah. And now my guess is his next transition will be just as extreme. Yeah, and he's still pretty young. He's got plenty of working years left if he wants it. Yep. So we'll see. I mean, I just feel like I agree. I just feel like he is someone who likes to do stuff. Yeah. And the temptation is going to be there after he'll take a year off after a year or two of relaxing. He'll get really bored, and then he'll be like, oh, I need to sell someone something. I love my kids, but I don't love them that much. His kids are probably already adults and they're off and doing their thing. So there you go. Maybe that's why he's retiring, because now it's time to party. It's possible. It is possible. So much respect, Reggie. Best of luck to you as you go on with the rest of your life and career. Let's talk next about Crackdown 3. We mentioned it briefly in the last episode. There's a breakdown, isn't it? Yeah. We have not Speaking of things that took 15 years. You're right. This game may have been started the day Reggie started at Nintendo. I would not be surprised if that were the case. But Crackdown 3, we talked about it very briefly in the last episode.
You've spent more time with it since then. I still have not played
No,
it.
I haven't, actually.
Oh, you haven't?
I have not played it since then.
Oh, you haven't?
I mean, I've played it for like 20 hours.
Oh, okay, good.
But like, I haven't played it.
Why didn't you suggest it for the last episode then?
I just assumed we were going to talk about it because it was one of the new games. I didn't realize you hadn't touched it yet.
Oh, yeah, I still haven't touched it. I am not a fan. As I've said on this show many times, I'm not a fan of Crackdown in general.
Right.
You are.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Was?
Yeah, I loved the first Crackdown. I did not particularly like the second Crackdown. And then when I went back to play the first Crackdown when it became backwards compatible on Xbox One, I was like, this isn't very good anymore. Like, I didn't like it anymore.
I remember back at G4, back when the first one came out, I was like the odd man out. Everybody loved this game. Everyone's playing. I'm like, I hate it. I think it's a piece of trash. And people hated me for it.
I don't think it wasn't fun to play anymore. Now the original. I tried to play it again. Because I love all the backwards compatible Xbox stuff on Xbox One, and the upscaling and everything looks great. And I went to play it, and like I didn't like it anymore. Like the shooting was awkward, and I couldn't like find things.
It's funny how quickly your standards can shift.
It's just at the time it was kind of in line with what open worlds were expected to be. Then it's just progressed so much since then. It didn't, and there's nothing. It's a very sterile. Open world because there's nothing to do but shoot stuff and blow things up.
Yeah, and collect orbs.
And now we have Crackdown 3, which is the exact same game.
It's the same exact thing.
I mean, look, I will say I do enjoy playing it more than 1. I think it's smoother in that regard, even though it is very similar. I think it's fun. Like I
mindless entertainment.
Mindless fun. I don't hate it. I mean, I've seen people just like, oh my god. I think it's fine. I think it's fun. I have played a fair amount of it without thinking about it too much while I listen to music or something.
I mean, the fact that you said you played it 20 hours, I literally almost like barfed.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't 20. I mean, it's like
that's a long time.
At least 15.
Wow.
I played it at least 15 hours.
So the game's big.
And I'm almost. Well, no, I'm slow.
Okay.
I'm running around shooting things and doing stuff and grabbing orbs and stuff. Like you could probably finish the main objectives in this in like 10 hours.
Okay.
Like if you just barrel through like unlocking the various lieutenants and killing them, like you could probably do it real fast. Like you could probably finish the whole game in like 2/3 of the time I've spent just playing it like at leisure.
Let's rewind a second. What is the plot in the game, and how does it relate to prior Crackdowns, if at all?
Well, it relates because so there's a city, Providence City or something like that. I admit it didn't stick in my head too well, and it's been like 3 weeks, or 2 weeks. But basically, there's another super corporation is taken over the city or something, and they're using like this tech to kind of like black out all the other cities, and like so this one is controlled by this woman who runs this corporation, and they've established sort of their own little sort of cyberpunk dystopian fiefdom here, and so you're being sent in with Terry Crews and the other agents to liberate them. And your craft gets shot down as you approach, and everybody dies basically.
Except Terry Crews.
No, Terry Crews dies.
Oh, really?
Everybody dies.
Okay.
And then this woman who runs like the resistance in the city finds the wreckage, and there's just enough genetic material left of your character, whoever. And you can pick Terry Crews, or you can pick there's like 9 other characters, and they all have different.
Is this them right there?
No, those are the bad guys.
Okay.
So whoever that is, like you pick, they get resurrected in because that's the premise of Crackdown is when you die, they reclone you and you run back out, and that's it. So she reclones you and kind of introduces you to like where this place is, and like go kill these guys, and you got to break out of this like holding. It's like a holding pen that they've got all these people in with you, and you get dropped into it, and you have to fight your way out. And after you do, the agency guy. The guy who's been the narrator voice guy for the rest of the series pops in. He's like, who's dealing with my agents? Kind of, and like she's like, well, we got to work together. So the resistance woman and the agency guy realize that like our only chance is we've got one agent left, and they're gonna have to be the one that fixes this. So the rest of the game is you as the last agent, like running through. And getting more, and because you got cloned, you lost all your abilities, so that's why you have to pick up all the orbs. This is the Metroid thing. You got to pick up all the orbs and upgrade again, and you got to work your way up. So there's all these different lieutenants that work for this woman, and like You've got the guy that runs security, and you've got the guy that runs the horrible industrial stuff, like is polluting everything. It's kind of a Captain Planet sort of thing. Like everybody's got a horrible, like evil corporate scheme they're doing, and you have to bust it up. And the more of them you destroy, the more like intel you get on that individual lieutenant. And when you build that up to 100% intel, it then shows you where they are, like on the map, and then you can go and get them and kill them. And when you kill them, a lieutenant, it deactivates a dangerous part of the final sort of, the final tower you have to climb to get to the big boss woman. I haven't done any of that yet, but like I've killed like 2 of the lieutenants and like, or 2 or 3 of the lieutenants, and like that's it. Like that's the game. That's it. It's just the same as the other Crackdowns, except there's a little more personality, a little more structure to it, but it's still the same thing. Like there's every single thing you do for the lieutenants, like like there's a rogue AI that runs all the tramway or the railway stations, and the way you get through that is you go to each occupied railway station and shoot stuff, and then a boss comes out and you kill them, and then you liberate that place, and that's it. And like that's it. So it's the same thing. You do the same thing every single time. There is no variety in what these missions are. Like every lieutenant has a brand of mission, and you are doing that the same way every single frickin' time.
Oh, geez.
The industrial guys, like you find like these big oil fields where they're pumping like this radioactive goo or whatever, and there's these big pumping like station things that are like those oil rig things that like the horse heads that like bounce up and down. So and they're pumping into this thing, and the way you destroy them is like there's like big rocks laying around. You pick them up and you throw them in the well, and when it comes back down, it like breaks it because there's a rock there.
Yeah, we have footage of that in the B-roll here in a bit.
So like the first time you do that, there's like one well, and you do that, and then it opens a valve up top, and you open the valve, and it destroys the place, and boom, you're done. So then the next one there's like 2, and then the next one there's 3, and then there's 4, and then there's 5. Like that's it. That's all it is. It's the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And if you like it, that's fine. But if you are expecting some kind of progression or some sort of evolution of what you're doing, it's not there. It's just Crackdown again. And I just sort of sometimes I enjoy it, and sometimes I sit there and I'm like, how did this take 7 years? I mean, not that I know anything about game development, but like it just seems like the same thing again. Why did it take this long to just do this again?
Well, I think the problem was they were trying to get all that destruction cloud stuff working.
There's none of that in the single player.
It's not. Yeah, it's gone.
None of it.
Yeah, it's only in the multiplayer.
And the multiplayer is cool. I've played a little bit of it. It's also weird that the multiplayer is a separate app.
Yeah, it is weird.
Like it's a totally separate thing.
Yeah.
Like it's even separate installs on your library on the Xbox.
Well, if you figure if it has to use the cloud,
yeah, I guess so.
It kind of makes sense. But the open world in this, I mean, its open world sort of opportunities were fine when the first Crackdown came out because open world was kind of a new thing. Has that changed at all?
No.
Like you can still run up and hijack a car and get in a car and drive it, but it's all very weird and awkward.
The driving is terrible.
Yeah.
Like the drive. I mean, because there's like the race missions and stuff where you have to like you're assigned a particular vehicle for each of those.
How
the
can you
racing
screw
things.
up a racing?
And it's like they all feel clunky and slippery and heavy, and they all just feel like, except for the agency, like the Lightning car that is built for speed, everything feels like it's really too heavy and bricky than it should be.
Just look at that car. It looks like I modeled it.
Yeah. Like it's I do like the aesthetic of the game to some degree. Like
I love the color palette.
But
the
neon sort of like cyber
I love the overall
thing. Like I think it looks
look.
cool. It also looks really clean in 4K. It's not like impressive graphically, like in the way like God of War is, but it's like aesthetically, I think it's very pleasing to the eye. Like at high resolutions, it looks cool, especially at night. It's just there's nothing particularly special about it. And the other thing I will say,
the aim's all auto aim.
Yeah, it's the same as the others. Like you hold the trigger to
snaps.
lock on, and then you can use the right stick to basically pick a body part to shoot.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it works, I guess.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll note is you get a much better experience playing as Terry Crews than any of the other agents because he has a lot more dialogue. Like he has a lot more. He talks a lot more when you're running around doing stuff, whereas the other agents say things, but they're not as vocal as he is.
So basically, Terry Crews is supposed to be the main character.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I think it's who you're expected to play as. I played as a few different ones, and like he was definitely the best, just because he had more personality.
Yeah.
They try to give like a bio and everything to all the agents, but he's the only one that really showed up to work, basically. And there's a ton of them. There's like 30 of them or something. Like there's because like there's like 8 or 9 of them unlocked at the beginning, and then you can find DNA that like unlocks like doubles the number of them, and they all basically have different skills. So like they all have a primary skill that's like, agility, 10% bonus for picking it. When you pick up the orbs, you get a 10% bonus to that. And then like, you get a 5% bonus to driving or whatever.
Yeah.
Driving being the hardest thing to level up in the game for me, because I just don't drive much.
You don't want to do it.
Yeah, because it's always more efficient to just jump places.
Well, this game is also, I think, more fun.
Yeah.
Just jumping around, because you do have that super floaty, super high jump.
Yeah, like the open world part. I mean, the open world doesn't do a lot with itself beyond like maybe, at most, you're talking like all the main mission stuff in this game would be like a side mission on a Ubisoft game,
right?
It would be like the annoying thing you have to do 40 times in a Ubisoft game. It wouldn't be the meat of it, but it is the meat of this,
right?
And I mean, it's kind of fine. It's just I feel like if you are a Game Pass subscriber and you got to play this off of that, you got a lot better deal than anybody who paid $60 for it.
How much would you pay for this game, Matt?
I mean, if I was just like gonna buy it for myself to play it on my own, I'd probably wait till it was like 20 or 30.
Yeah.
Like,
or you just spend $10.
Or you get the Game Pass.
Or you get Game Pass, I think, for free the first month, can't you?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't looked into that.
Worst case scenario, you spend $10.
Yeah. And that's fine. That's a fine, because the problem isn't even that it's like it's over too fast, or it's like I think most people are going to get bored and just not play, because it's that thing where like at a certain point you realize that the game doesn't have anything else to show you, and the only reason to finish it is for the sake of saying you finished it. Like,
yeah.
If you're one of those people that's obsessed with backlog or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think most people would just like play it until they got bored and walk away. And like that's kind of like the perfect thing for Game Pass, right? Like that's what that's for, right?
That's what I'm wondering.
If it was the old days, I would call it a perfect rental.
Someone asked a great question about this for Pactor Factor, which was, is Game Pass a place for games like this? And is that a strategy that Microsoft's going to follow going forward with these new studios that it purchases? Is it going to start making like smaller, less impressive games, but games that make perfect sense for Game Pass?
Yeah.
And Pac seems to think no, that won't be the case, but who knows? I mean, I'm surprised that this game was released.
I'm just glad it's out and we can stop talking about it.
This will be the last. It's definitely not going to be brought up in our Game of the Year discussions.
I don't see that happening.
I can guarantee that that's not going to be the case. But I mean, I'm shocked that this game came out, because I figured if they allowed this much time for the game to be developed, that it would be far better than this when it finally came out. For it to just be a clone, essentially, of the first 2 Crackdowns after all this time.
It's the weird thing is like it doesn't have any new ideas. It's not even that it's like
even
it tried
compared to the old games.
No, it's not even that it tried new things and didn't quite get there. It's just like you just made Crackdown again, and that's fine. Like I have no problem with Crackdown again, but it's like it should be cheaper and it should not take an entire generation. Like I don't know what else to say.
You think this team will make another game?
I have no idea. Which team is it? Is this Sumo?
Yeah.
Well, Sumo Digital's been around. Sumo Digital is like one of the big contractors for things. That's the other.
I mean, but another first-party Microsoft game.
Maybe, I don't know. I think I don't know who. I don't know enough about the internal politics of what happened with this project to know who Microsoft might blame or want to avoid in the future. Also, like that's the other thing that surprised me about this is Sumo Digital does a lot of good racing stuff.
It does,
and I don't know what happened here.
It's really weird. Yeah, I mean, they made sense for the project to me initially, but turns out maybe not so much. I would be really surprised if Sumo gets another Microsoft project. I'll say that much.
Well, we'll see.
I mean,
all I know is I think everyone involved has to be glad that it's over.
Yeah.
like just we're done. Crackdown
we'll be able to
3's
delete
out.
the Crackdown 3 B-roll off of the TriCast.
We never have to look at that again in an E3 press conference, or we have to ask when's Crackdown 3 coming. It's done. We made it, everyone.
It's funny.
We got here.
The footage bank on our TriCaster has become like this barometer
Yeah.
Because, when we first started back in 2015, I just started loading it up with footage. And then as time goes on, the hard drive fills up, and you have to start deleting old game footage off of the TriCaster.
You can never get rid of Crackdown 3.
So another
Crackdown
part
3's been there since you started the company.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. And so, the other thing about it is, as we use the TriCaster, we learned, okay, when we render B-roll, we just take the audio out. And because it saves from file size, and we don't need the audio because we don't run the game audio except for our trailer of the week. So another flag is if a trailer has audio in it, that means it's been around for a long time, and all the Crackdown stuff still has audio in the trailers that you could turn on if you wanted to. So yeah, it'll be good to get to wipe that off of the TriCaster after all this time. I honestly don't think I'll ever play this game. I thought about just getting Game Pass for a month, just one, because I really should check it out, but two, to play this and kind of kill two birds with one stone.
Also, you see the morphine car there?
Yeah.
That's not in the game.
Yeah, where's all that stuff?
That was one of my favorite little weird little touches about Crackdown, and the car doesn't morph anymore.
Yeah.
You can transform it. You can change from speed mode to spider mode, which you can climb up walls and stuff, and then there's a tanky car, the Minotaur, I think it's called.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, when you in the old games you got in the car, and depending on how high level your agent was, the car would morph into a more badass version of itself.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Huh. Yeah, so I guess what we're both saying is nobody should buy Crackdown 3.
Not yet.
Maybe it's a good reason to give Xbox
I don't even know what that's
Game
supposed
Pass.
to indicate.
This is probably the cloud stuff.
I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. This is them explaining how the whole cloud thing was supposed to work.
Comparing it to kind of this early stuff, it's clearly what we ended up getting is a giant punt.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's why I'm surprised they released it still. All this media is out there.
They can't cancel everything.
Yeah, although
now's the rumors of Scalebound's coming back.
Coming for Switch. I think I may have said that a long time ago, actually, that would be a good idea. But we'll see if that's actually true. I haven't seen any
I don't know.
legitimate reporting on it yet.
Nintendo got the relationship with Platinum.
Yeah.
And the relationship with Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
Yep.
It's just a matter of cramming it onto the Switch.
Yep.
I'd much rather see Scalebound come back than have to play Crackdown 3 again.
I would agree with that. I will play Scalebound. I will not play Crackdown 3.
I think you would enjoy 20 minutes of Crackdown 3.
Yeah.
You'd be like, this is fun.
It's watching
not,
stuff blow up.
I don't hate it. I don't, it's not I've seen a lot of vitriol pointed at it, and it's just it's not honestly bad. It's just there.
Yeah. There's nothing special about it.
Yeah, and if you're an Xbox only owner and you're waiting for your exclusives, this is a pretty bland.
That's pretty disappointing after all that time.
Yeah.
To wait for that game. So, all right, it's time to move on. We're going to talk about Pokemon, and if you looked at the teaser there, well, go back there, Sam. I totally screwed up, and it says Pokemon SNW.
Huh.
Instead of Pokemon SNS. So my apologies for that, but we are going to talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield. Generation 8 Pokemon is here, folks. It's coming to Switch. It's coming at the end of the year. We are
Fantasy
not...
team saved?
Yeah, it might be. We are not showing the trailer for the game because Pokemon Company is burly with copyright strikes.
They were pulling down people's reaction videos that didn't even have footage in it.
Yeah, so I'll never understand it. Nintendo has figured it out, but Pokemon Company is its own entity, and I don't know if you guys remember, the last time we ran something from Pokemon Company, it literally stopped the show. It wouldn't even let you guys watch the show. So we're not going to show the trailer. You can see it on SIFTD. It's about 2 minutes long. I think by the time this discussion is over, you won't even need to see it because we're going to talk about it at length here. What were your first impressions? What's the first thing you thought when you saw the trailer for the first time?
I thought that what's that other game that Pokemon Company's making, Town?
Yeah.
Or something like that? I felt like I was justified in believing that Town was a dry run for what a Pokemon game would look like in that formatting.
See that.
And it was very clearly, that's Pokemon. It's Pokemon. Everyone who was worried that Pokemon Gen 8 was going to be some kind of horrible Let's Go Frankenstein's monster. No, it's just Pokemon.
It's just a Pokemon game. And again, we can't show it to you, but I liked how right at the open of the trailer, they showed the elements that the hardcore Pokemaniacs complained that was missing from Let's Go. They show the character sneaking through the grass.
Yeah, they show random battle.
And they show, exactly.
They're fighting the Pokemon before you capture him.
Right, literally like one of the first things that they showed in that trailer. It's like, look, here's this stuff you guys complained that wasn't in Let's Go.
They just like busted in like, it was just like, everybody chill. Everybody just relax.
And just so you guys know, the footage we're showing you right now is from Let's Go. This is not the trailer.
It looks real good. I mean, I know there was some disappointment that like people were hoping for kind of like the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon.
I think it kind of looks like that though.
But they wanted like people are like wanting for some kind of open world. They wanted to reinvent the franchise the way Breath of the Wild reinvented Zelda, and I just don't think that was ever in the cards.
But Pokemon is kind of an open world game. I mean, they gate you with abilities.
But they don't mean that. They mean like the way like Breath of the Wild made things so much more organic. And it wasn't this like a structured thing. Yeah. Like people, I guess there were people expecting something like that.
Like you could tackle the quest in any
that you would
order
that they would reinvent Pokemon the way on the Switch to the degree that Zelda got reinvented for the Switch.
Gotcha.
And Sword and Shield looks pretty much like just a console version of a Pokemon game, which is to me exactly what it should be.
I think that's what most people wanted.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it does look. I think it looks very good. I think it looks very pretty.
I don't think it does.
I think it looks good.
So they didn't put out any screenshots for this. So when we create a game page on SIFTD, if they don't release official screenshots, we have to grab our own screenshots. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we just watch the trailer full screen and just do a print screen. And the game is not that technically impressive.
Well, no, it's on the Switch.
Yeah, I mean, no, going beyond that. Like comparing it to other Switch games, even comparing it, in my opinion, to Let's Go, I think Let's Go looks better.
I don't agree with that at all.
I don't know. Go back and really look at that footage.
I did look at it pretty. I watched it 3 times. I mean, I like what it looks like. I mean, it's a different art style.
I think the art is fine. I just think technically it does not look very good.
I don't expect it to look good. It's on the Switch, but it does look better than Sun and Moon. So
the 3DS game.
What are you gonna do?
Well, nothing. I don't make it, but I'm just here offering my opinion. I was not impressed with the visuals in it. The art's fine, but just technically, they try to do like motion and distance blurring, and it makes the textures just look awful. I don't know. I don't think it looks very good, but it doesn't matter because the way I play Pokemon, I'll end up turning off half of the stuff anyway after I get through the first 10 hours of it. The visuals don't mean that much to me. It's more about how it plays. And it appears that this is about as faithful a console Pokemon as there has ever been.
Yeah, this is the only. I mean, it's Gen 8.
Yeah.
It's the official mainstream, real core series. Jump into a console/handheld. So I think you're going to get what that. You're going to get exactly what it says on the box for that one.
3 brand new starter Pokemon.
Yep.
There's a water Pokemon, a grass Pokemon.
Yep.
And what's the
fire?
Third? And a fire Pokemon.
Fire,
same
water,
3
and grass.
as always.
The fan art started literally seconds after that. I saw someone did it. First off, I love the thing where someone said they all look like mascots for generic grocery store brand cereals, which is true. But someone also noted they're the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh.
And even in some of the official art, even found equivalent poses of the Powerpuff. It is. I'm like, wow, that's a well spotted. I mean, I'm into it. I will probably pick the water one. I usually pick the water one.
I usually pick grass because then you can get poison.
Poison is good.
Poison is. But when you're playing single player Pokemon, poison is invaluable.
I generally don't like the ape type Pokemon very much, though.
Yeah.
So the grass is right out.
Yeah.
I do like the fire one, the bunny, but I think I'm going to go with Sobble.
The water one.
The shy water salamander.
Did they say how many new Pokemon will be?
I don't think they did.
I thought maybe I did see that, over 200 or something.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Creeping up on 1,000 total.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken, or maybe they just said it'll have that many total, including old Pokemon or something.
I don't know. Traditionally they have included all the other previous Pokemon. But I don't know. I don't know how many they add. I mean, usually they add on 150 more or so.
Yeah, and then set in a brand new region. What was it called? Gondal or
I don't know. It's
something
it's the UK.
It's very diverse. It has country, rural areas. It has downtown city environment. It looks a lot like Sun and Moon, in all honesty.
Yeah, and already the female player character has been reinterpreted by the fandom on Twitter as a foul-mouthed Scottish girl, like screaming like obscenities at people as they start Pokemon battles. In the shades of Merida from the Wreck-It Ralph 2 trailer, where they started having her like do all this stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, that meme has morphed into the new Pokemon game. So well done, internet. We don't know a whole lot yet, but like I'm happy it's coming this year, and we expected it to.
Here's one thing I'll say, though.
I think it'll do well.
It seems like the sales of Let's Go disappeared really quick.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like it had like 1 month and then a half of another month, and then it was just gone.
Well, it got really overshadowed by Smash Brothers a few weeks later.
It really hurt it. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just, Let's Go didn't seem to have the legs that your average Pokemon game
Yeah, I mean,
would.
usually those games just keep selling.
Yeah, but, there's like we talked about back when it came out, it's like the core fan base, that really gives those games the longevity they have, didn't really embrace that the same way. Which is, part of it was just like a weird paranoia that a lot of people had over Let's Go's success influencing this game, influencing Sword and Shield, but it was like Sword and Shield has been in development for 2 or 3 years. Like, there's no way they're going to change that like a year before release. Like that, Sword and Shield is basically functionally done beyond the polish stages at this point. So maybe in Gen 8 you got to worry, or Gen 9 you got to worry about it. But like I think this is going to be a very traditional Pokemon game. It just looks better and it's on a Switch.
You think it's too much Pokemon in a short period of time on one platform?
No.
No?
No.
Do you think there's any such thing as too much Pokemon?
Maybe, but like a new gen is a different beast. Like maybe you're not super excited about Let's Go because it's a remake of Yellow, or you weren't super excited about Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire because you'd already played those, or those were Ruby and Sapphire weren't your favorite Pokemon games back in the day. But I think just about anybody who's into Pokemon is going to get excited about the new gen. Yeah. So I don't think it's a factor. I mean, if they want to put out, I don't know, what would the platinum equivalent of this be? Pokemon Bow? Pokemon Wand? Like what are we? I don't know. I don't know what the third object would be in the Sword and Shield lineup. If they put that out too soon, that could be maybe an issue. But usually they give that a year or something.
Maybe they just didn't count on having the typical Pokemon sales with Let's Play. They're like, you know what? We're okay with that selling a few million. It took us a year to make.
Yeah, I would think that that's true. I mean, you can't expect the performance of a mainstream, new generation Pokemon game out of what is effectively a remake. Yeah. Especially when there's a chunk of the fan base that is just sick to death of Gen 1. And
not me.
No, I'm not.
I'd be fine if they just kept using Gen 1 like the whole time.
Yeah, there's a big debate about that in the fandom.
I'm sure most of the younger players hate Gen 1, but
oh yeah, sick of it. But like to me, like once you go past Gen 3, I can't remember.
I'm completely tuned out. I could not tell you probably a single Pokemon from Gen 3. I don't think.
Yeah, well, it's like. For me, it's like weird how the designs change. Like I was at the Pokemon, not the Pokemon store. I was at the Nintendo World Store in New York over the weekend, and there's stuffed Pokemon everywhere, right? Just like bins and bins of stuff. And some of them are like, oh, there's an Eevee, there's a Pikachu, and some of them are like, what is this? Like I don't even know what right side up is on this thing. They look like reject Digimon or something.
It's like they're being just shoved into like a character generator or whatever.
Or like I felt the same once like Yu-Gi-Oh kind of hit the GX era. It's like, okay, that now you're just drawing Power Rangers with like ears.
Right.
I don't know what you're doing anymore. So yeah, it's just too many. I can't remember 700 video game monsters. At a certain point. But I still play them,
I do too.
Black and White.
I played Let's Go for, I don't know how many hours. 50 maybe.
I mean, I like gold. I love Gold and Silver, and then like my second favorite Pokemon like core game is Black and White.
Yeah,
it's not like
really
I hate.
good.
It's not like I hate the later games.
Black and White was the one with the PETA message, right?
Yeah, that was where you're basically fighting PETA.
Yeah, where they're like, you're torturing these animals, putting them in. And I was like, you know what, you're right.
And then it turned out to be like some kind of weird like conspiracy thing.
Right.
With, like, some kid just wanted to get back at his abusive father or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it went deep in Black and
White.
Like
every single anime ever. I don't know. But I liked the game. I thought it had an interesting perspective on this sort of like we're going to send 12-year-olds out to cockfight for a living.
Yeah, I kind of thought that the series might like stay on that angle, but it didn't. It went right back to kind of fluff and
yeah. There's a place for flow. I'm curious what this one will be. If this will be a fluffy one or if there's going to be some.
Sun and Moon was kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
It had some serious stuff in it, but nothing like Black and White.
No, Black and White was the dark period, the dark indie.
And I did buy the black version of that game as well. So yeah, coming out at the end of the year, Switch exclusive. Gonna sell like crazy.
Yep.
It'll be probably when it's all said and done the best-selling Switch game.
Could be. You combine both SKUs, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Smash Brothers suddenly has competition.
Yeah, I saw some people complaining on SIFTD about the 2-version thing with Pokemon.
That's Pokemon.
It is, but and the point was, you know, you guys are a bunch of gullible whatevers for buying these or buying both or whatever. Most people don't buy both.
No.
It is a little slimy though.
No, it's not.
I think it is.
It's part of the thing. It's always been part of the deal.
But that doesn't mean it's right.
It was absolutely right. It's why the game was successful to begin with, because it forced trading on playgrounds between the Game Boy Link. That was the purpose, was to make you play with people and
I don't want to
trade
do
with
that
people.
though. I just want to. You should just give me all the Pokemon.
That's not how it works.
If I have to earn them through the campaign, that's fine. But
now you can do it like that's the other thing. Is like now it's even easier than ever. Like with all the online stuff.
It just makes it dumb. It's like, really, I have to like go and put in some stupid friend code. Like
no, you don't.
I did it with Let's Play with Vincent. We went through the whole online suite together.
I can go online. I can throw. I'm like, I'm looking for this guy. I'm up for this guy.
Thing code, and the other person has to put in the same code, and then it'll connect you, and then you can trade or battle or whatever.
I don't know.
I just think it's dumb.
It's Pokemon. Like
I
that's
understand
Pokemon.
that. I know it's been that way, but that doesn't mean it's right or okay. Like,
of course it's okay. It sells millions.
When people do crappy stuff, after a while it becomes blasé, and people just accept it as okay.
That's not a crappy thing. It's part of the thing. It's part of the charm. It's like you got to catch them all, and to do that you got to interact with people. That was the whole point.
I understand that. I've obviously been playing Pokemon since day one. That doesn't change the fact that it's a little shady. That you're going to hold like 10 Pokemon hostage to try to get people to buy multiple copies of the game.
That's not why they do that. Most people don't own multiple copies. I mean, the hardcore people own everything.
And families, like one brother will get one version, the other brother will get the other one.
Sure, but it's not like you weren't going to buy separate versions for the kids anyway, so because otherwise they fight over the damn thing.
I guess it depends on your family and your situation, but it's a valid point, I think. I think people who have been playing Pokemon all along have just kind of accepted it at this point. People who have never played it look at it like that's completely asinine, and I can respect both sides of the coin there.
Yeah, I don't. It's like that's part of the thing, part of the deal. Yeah. I think it's kind of dumb when other games copy that. Like when Mega Man
Watch do that.
Yokai Watch did that. Mega Man Battle Network did that.
Right.
Like a bunch of the kind of there weren't Pokemon clones, but like if
there
were like kind of anything related to collecting creatures or something, you were pretty much guaranteed at some point to have different versions that had exclusive items. And the other thing because the other reason it's not as big a deal in my opinion for Pokemon is that Pokemon is so popular, you're always gonna be able to find a way to get those other things. Whereas like, good luck finding someone who has the other version of Mega Man Battle Network 4 now. You know, it's like that was even at the time.
Even at the time it was hard. Yeah.
So like I don't think it's a great practice outside of the Pokemon series, but I think the Pokemon series has the size and inertia that like now the online tools that you're never going to hit a point where like you just can't get a Pokemon because it's not in your version. And if I really can't, I get the other version from my niece and get them from her.
Yeah. Are you excited for this game?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like a hardcore Pokemon person, but like, I would say of what we know of for the rest of the year, that's probably my most anticipated Switch game.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much that's saying.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I don't know. I'd probably say the same thing. But
I mean, there might be stuff we don't know about yet.
I will say this. I think having just played Let's Play has me less excited for the new one.
I am a little interested to see what I think about it without kind of the nice things of Let's Go. Like the fact that Let's Go lets you access the PC anywhere.
Yeah.
If I have to keep going back to Pokemon centers to do that in this one,
I hope some of that stuff has changed.
I would be nice.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw any real indication of whether that would be there. Because there's a point at which, like, yes, I would like the battles to be, the capture battles to be an actual battle where I have, there's a little more strategy to that, and I think that should definitely be that way. But in terms of like the basic quality of life stuff that Let's Go had,
I say keep it.
I don't see any reason not to let me access my Pokemon bank at any given time when I'm just wandering around the world. You know?
Yeah, just a lot of contrivances with the old games that really were there for limitations on hardware or whatever. There's really no reason for those to be there now. But going back to what I was saying about having just played Let's Play, I'm not as excited for this one. I'm not used to playing Pokemon every year. Mm-hmm. It's like I play Pokemon once every 3 years or so. And right about that time, I'm ready to play more Pokemon. Now, with one coming, I literally spent like 60 hours on Let's Go. So now, a year later, to kind of stand there at the precipice of this mountain of a 50-hour game again, it's not something I'm ready to just dive into.
Well, especially if there's elements of it that are going to feel like a step back if you liked some of the things that Let's Go did.
I would be surprised if they did that, though.
I don't know. Like I really don't know.
It depends on a lot of fan feedback. Like if people are complaining about it, like I don't know why anyone would complain about that, but I see people complaining about stuff all the time that I have no idea why they're complaining about it. So who knows? It
just depends how purist they're going to be about this being, Gen 8 and not a remake, I mean, I know they went on and on about how Let's Go was a real mainstream entry because it's called Pocket Monsters and not Pokemon, whatever.
Right.
No, it's a remake. It's not, it's not Gen 8. It's not, and clearly they are not, Let's Go's, changes and updates were not a thing that they intended to put into the main series as a permanent change. So, but there are things that Let's Go does that I think improved just the experience of playing it and would also improve playing a mainline game in the same way. Yep. So we'll see if they're smart enough to kind of like know where that line should be.
Yep.
I really would like to be able to access the PC anywhere. Like that's my main thing.
Yeah, it's huge.
Is being able to, and like some people I'm sure would say that ruins part of the strategy of going out in the world and having your team and having to get your team to work. But it's like
survive.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like okay, so what happens if your team dies? You just run back to the thing and but just let us switch thing. Who cares?
Yeah, like, it's a contrivance, like I said.
Yeah.
So games coming out in 10 months.
Is that what they said? December?
Well, it's by the end of the year, and we're already in March.
I mean, my guess would be this would be like in November, October, but then after Smash Brothers blew the doors off everything in the beginning of December, maybe that's Nintendo's favorite location.
I think a lot of it will depend on what else they have.
Yeah, but I feel like this is a game you probably want out pre-Black Friday.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Let's Go.
You want it bundled with systems. You want it. I'll be a little shocked if there's no special Pokemon Switch bundle. It'll
be like a Pikachu Switch or something.
Sword Switch. I mean, maybe that's why the Sword and Shield is like the Sword Switch and the Shield Switch.
Possible.
Like the SS, a little alliteration.
Yeah.
There. In which case, the third one would probably be Pokemon Staff, which sounds like an office simulator, but I don't know. I'm just thinking about what they call the third one.
What will they call that? Like ultimate version that they always put out of.
Well, I mean, last time they just did Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon,
right?
So maybe that one I'll agree is a little shady. Instead of putting the third sort of ultimate version out, they've just started putting out like better ultra versions of both versions. Like that's okay. Now
they
there's
can
4.
milk it, man. People will buy it. They'll make it. That's
they did. I bought it. Yeah, I did it.
Yep. Okay, let's move along. We'll talk a lot more about Pokemon Sword and Shield as the year goes on.
That's going to be just pretty much an ongoing theme throughout the year.
Yeah, because now that they've open the dams, the waters are just going to flow forth, and we'll be getting information probably every month about the game. So we'll check back in as needed. Let's talk next about Xbox. And there have been 3 big stories about Xbox in the last week and a couple days. And this was the story that we were alluding to, or the topic we were alluding to earlier. We were talking about how is it just more important to just get your content out as much as possible, or is it more important to kind of hoard it and have that content just for you on your platform? Xbox appears to be making a move towards the former, with wanting to get its content out as many places as possible. The first story is Xbox Game Pass could be coming to Switch. How mind-blowing is that for you?
I mean, I kind of, I didn't know, I wasn't specifically expecting Game Pass, but I expected something to happen between Microsoft and Nintendo at some point, just because they'd seem to have gotten so chummy over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
This is a pretty massive move.
That is a gigantic move.
Because it'd be a streaming permutation of the Game Pass service, which would basically give you, you could play Forza Horizon on your Switch.
Play everything.
It's crazy.
Yeah, all first-party stuff.
You play Halo on
your Switch.
Master Chief for Smash.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows where you go for there?
Do you think this is smart for Nintendo?
I don't know.
Because aren't you kind of? It's like a drug dealer coming into your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'll give you that first one for free," but I don't know. It's like.
Well, also you wonder if it would cannibalize some sales of the multi-platform stuff that people buy on the Switch, then they already have it because they're like,
right.
Oh, I want a handheld version of that.
Yeah.
A lot of that would be doubled up on a Game Pass subscription. Although, because if you're streaming it, it's not quite the same because it's not like you can, you're probably not going to have a Wi-Fi connection strong enough to stream something like Game Pass on the train or whatever.
Right.
It doesn't completely undermine that idea. This is something to kind of do at home, I would imagine. Although, I guess if you're Nintendo, it's just hey, the more the merrier. It's just another thing that makes the Switch more attractive to someone, especially someone who doesn't want to spend the money on an Xbox, because it is pretty hard to justify buying an Xbox on its own.
Right now it is very hard, especially when you see stuff like Crackdown 3 coming out.
Yeah.
I think it's a good play for Nintendo, though, because it helps solve, kind of, its third-party problem.
Yeah.
A lot of that depends on the deals that Microsoft cracks to see what ends up on Game Pass. But conceivably, as a Switch owner, you could have access to some of the bigger third-party games from the last couple years just through Game Pass.
Yep.
And you can have access to Xbox exclusives.
Yeah. Microsoft's, Crackdown, but Gears of War is coming. There's a lot of Gears of War you can play. I'm sure there's people who own Switch that have never owned an Xbox.
And that's day one.
It's all new to you.
That's day one. When first-party games come out, they're on Game Pass that day. Day one. So you would be able to play Xbox exclusives on the Switch the day they come out.
It's pretty cool.
How does that... So here's the thing. I think this was a part of Microsoft's plan for a really, really long time. And I think we saw the first glimpses of that when they started talking about the Play Anywhere.
Yeah.
And their games coming to PC. And then they launch Game Pass, which is all these games for just $10 a month. My question is, how are you recouping all the money with just people paying $10 a month? To me, the math just doesn't add up. It doesn't work.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the Game Pass business model. I had a couple people explain it to me at one point, and it made sense at the time, but then I forgot it again. I think Pactor has kind of broken it down a couple of times.
He hasn't really, though.
Hasn't he?
No. That's why I don't know anything about it, because usually I rely on him for that crap.
Well, you should make up a question for the next thing. Just have the question be from you.
Yeah, he didn't even explain the model during Pactor Factor this week when there was a question asked about it. He didn't explain how does that work? How do the publishers get paid for the games? Is it like a Spotify thing where you get paid per play?
I don't know.
Or is it you just get a
wouldn't think-
flat sum from Microsoft for giving the game to the service?
I would
Like,
think it's a flat sum, and I would think the idea is it would be that like you got a certain mass of people that's going to get that subscription, and it's a larger number than that would spend $60 on a game, and the idea is that you would end up with more subscribers than you would purchases of the individual full price game.
I guess if you have 6 people who had no plans on buying Crackdown 3, all paying $10 a month for Game Pass.
Now you just made $60.
Right.
But you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea. Does that work? Is that going to work on a macro scale? I don't know. Like, I don't have that information. But that's the idea, I think. And I do also think it ties into sort of, maybe tangentially, but it does tie into what Pachter always talks about the whole, there is no console future thing.
It does, yeah.
Where like, because I mean, there's still a console, you're holding a Switch, but you're playing Xbox. Microsoft has toyed off and on over the years with the idea of making Xbox as a brand not just identified with the physical box you have on your TV stand.
Yeah.
Like they want Xbox to be what you think of when they've always kind of targeted, even when they would do like product placement in shows and stuff, you could tell they were trying to become the modern version of when, like, back when we were kids and like parents would say, no matter what we were going to play, are you going to play Nintendo?
Right.
Like Nintendo was just the word they used to mean video game.
Well, I think
that's Microsoft wants Xbox to be that now.
I think Microsoft was smart and saw the future before a lot of other people did, which is something we've talked about on the show, services. Services are the new economy. It's not selling something, it's selling something people use.
Yes.
And if you go back, Microsoft was the first to say, we're not going to share how many consoles we sell every month anymore. Our important metrics are how many people are subscribing to our services, Xbox Live, Game Pass, etc. And that was a long time ago. And now you're starting to see why they did that way back then, because they knew where their business was headed already.
Well, I remember the story I was told, back at the early 2000s GDCs when Xbox was becoming a thing. They showed that that big horrible silver X promo, that prototype thing. Like the thing, what was said was like in the late 90s, like last few years of the 90s, basically Bill Gates said, video games, interactive entertainment is the 21st century, and we need to own that, and I don't care what it takes.
Yeah.
And that was why it didn't matter that the original Xbox was not a runaway success.
Well,
It was just step one.
Yeah.
Like it was just, they had a plan.
When you have that kind of money,
forward.
you can do that.
Now, maybe Velocity Girl never got to sell that Tony Hawk's t-shirt on Xbox Live, but just about everything else actually did happen.
It did happen, yeah. And I think some of the things you're seeing that they originally announced with the Xbox One at launch, what they thought they were going to do with it, didn't happen right away because people pushed back, but now people are a little more open to it, and that stuff's going to start coming back around again, and we'll see if 5-6 years later, if people are a little more open to the idea.
And I think they're also very smart in that they're teaming up with Nintendo, and Nintendo is recognizing this at the same time, that one of the smartest things they can be doing right now is forming this unified front of, we want to give you what you want, we want to provide this service, we want to let you play what you want to play, how you want to play it, wherever you want to play it, as a front against Sony that's standing over here saying, like, no, you can't play crossplay, you can't. Like,
and there's still some rumblings going on with Sony about how it's picking favorites for games that it allows crossplay with, and
like, I think it's real smart to see Xbox and Nintendo sort of like kind of both recognizing this is the way to go, and we might as well go there together because we don't really consider each other competitors anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas Sony kind of is still sort of stuck.
Yeah, still in that ivory tower.
Yeah. So it's going to be
us against the world.
This is going to be a fascinating generational transition.
It is maybe the most fascinating ever, in all honesty. Yeah. Speaking of which, great segue into the next thing we're going to talk about, which is Xbox 2. Which,
or whatever they call it.
Well, right. But now I'm starting to think that that's exactly what it's going to be called, because there are 2 platforms. So they're saying that one is a disc-free streaming machine, and the other one is a traditional console. There were funky names for the 2 of them. One was called like Humbart or something like that. There's names for each one of them. But anyway, the rumors have been going around for a while about this. It's
Xbox
not
Dual.
Yeah, but now it sounds like it's really going to happen, which makes the whole idea of Xbox 2 make too much sense. Because it's legitimately 2 consoles, 2 platforms. Which makes you wonder if this plan has been in action all along.
Yeah.
And this was the plan, that the next one would be 2 different platforms in one. So you call the first one Xbox One. We're going to call Xbox 3. We're going to get 3 platforms, Matt.
Yeah.
In 30 years, we're going to get 8 platforms.
Xbox 3D.
Then what is it?
At a certain point, it just plugs into your spinal column, I guess.
Do you think consumers are at the point now where they're informed enough that this is fine?
Maybe.
Because years ago, this would have been a terrible idea.
I think it all depends on how they present it. It's gonna live or die by how they present the information to the consumer. Like, is the discless one cheaper? Are you paying less because it doesn't have a drive in it?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're paying the same, but the one that doesn't have the disk drive has a much larger hard drive.
Right.
Something like that. Like just as long as you can make it somehow.
Well, they did
clear.
say the one was way cheaper, and that'll be for just the average consumer. And then,
almost like an Amazon Fire kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they're saying the full-on console one will be for people like us, and it'll
Right.
be expensive, and it'll be bleeding-edge tech, and blah blah blah.
Was there talk about power differential between them?
Not so
No?
far. No.
Okay.
Which could come up though.
It's fascinating. This is the first generational transition in a long time where I feel like we're sort of sitting back and be like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like,
It's a great unknown.
like not
Which
really
is kinda awesome.
Really not since the change to 3D.
Yeah.
Like has there been such a shift in
Yep.
how you present these things and how they're done? Like, because you went, that's when you went from these systems that were just like these little boxes you stuck a thing into to like suddenly there's all these moving parts. They got lasers in them. It's like lasers and lenses and CDs, and it was a total shift unless you were Nintendo. And even Nintendo though, like that crazy controller on the N64, like nothing we'd ever seen. It's like it was you saw this thing where like you made this transition to this new generation. It's like how you play these things is changing now. And it's never going back the way it used to be.
And it's really not.
And it feels like 20 some years later, 25 years later. 25 years later?
That's
Jeez.
crazy, I know.
It's going to be, 2020 is going to be the same thing. It's like this stuff's going to change and it's never going to be the same again. And it's going to be fascinating to see how all 3 of these companies approach that.
It'll be fascinating to see how people respond to
That too.
2 different versions of a console coming out at launch.
Also, because we learned this generation that if you don't make that approach properly, the people will revolt.
Yeah, I know.
And you'll have to change your completely change your strategy. So.
I mean, you just got to think about the supply chain and everything. How do you predict demand?
Yeah.
How do you know how many people are going to buy that streaming version? How many people are going to buy that hardwired console version?
How do you make sure you don't go one or the other?
Right.
Even if you make, what if you make equal versions of both, and like one's way more popular? And
That's what I'm saying.
It's not that just like it's you have a shortage, but now you've got all these things sitting on shelves.
Yeah, and people are going into the store and they're like, "There's that crappy streaming one that no one wants. Where's the one that everybody wants to buy?" Like,
or there's that expensive one nobody cares about.
Right. There's just so many scenarios that have never happened before. They're going to set a precedent with this stuff.
And meanwhile, Sony is silent.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Like,
well,
it's exciting.
There are rumors now that the new Xbox may launch this year.
I don't buy that.
I don't either, but I mean, just the fact that there are rumors suggesting that. I mean, it looks like it's definitely coming out in 2020. Next year.
I think so. And what was there were some leaks, some like leak rumor or whatever about Ubisoft that came out a couple days ago, saying that Watch Dogs 3 is taking the Assassin's Creed slot this year.
Yeah.
And that Assassin's Creed, I think Assassin's Creed is called Legion, and it takes place in Rome, ancient Rome, and it's a cross-generation game. It's a next-gen and a bridge game for 2020, which implies that you're going to have a new system to put it on in 2020, right? And yet again, Ubisoft like blows the lid on it.
It always does.
Like with Watch Dogs 1, they're like, oh, is this next? Oh, it's just a thing we did on powerful hardware that I don't know. Who can say? It's just like,
isn't it lunchtime yet?
So
yeah, and then the final thing, it's been a big week for Xbox. The final thing is that people are saying that PC game or that Xbox games have been spotted working on PCs. And that's not a Play Anywhere thing. That's put an Xbox game in a disc, and Windows runs it off the disc. Yeah.
Like running Xbox One code. Like
Right.
It's not,
Right on the PC.
Pretty nuts.
It is pretty nuts. I mean, Microsoft is just basically saying, like, let's get our content everywhere.
Yeah.
I think Microsoft is realizing the universal truth that will never go away and will never change, and that is content is king.
Mm-hmm.
And in this generation, if you're smart to move away from, hey, we're making all our money on hardware, to, hey, let's try to make all our money on services, because hardware is...
It's like instead of the whole thing, it's like, oh, sell them the razor at a loss to then sell the blades. Like, what if we just shave you everywhere?
Right.
Like, no matter where you are, you can shave.
Yeah. I
Like-
mean, what they're really saying is, what if you don't need the razor? All you
Right.
need is the blade.
Right.
Because you can get razors everywhere now for, like, nothing. And Microsoft, to me, is really looking at the future and making moves towards the future, while it feels like the other two kind of fight the future. Which is weird, because to me, Microsoft was, of those three, would not be the company that would do that.
Well, I don't know, because Microsoft, for all their monolithic status, at heart, Microsoft is an OS company. They make software.
But they still try to get people to pay for Windows. They still try to get people to pay for Microsoft Office.
But it makes more sense than, I have a hard time imagining a time or a world when Nintendo doesn't want control over its hardware.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that is so ingrained in the DNA of that company.
I know. Yeah.
And even Sony.
It may never happen.
Like
ever.
No. I mean, not unless there's a paradigm shift that would. It would be multiple generations from now, I would think.
I mean, do you think Nintendo would ever? Well, first of all, yeah, it would launch a streaming service for its games. But do you think it would ever allow that to go on another console?
Like if they launched their own kind of Game Pass thing and put it on Xbox.
Right.
Before this, I would have said probably not, but who knows? Who knows what
I mean, it
what's
is
coming.
the new Nintendo now, thanks to Reggie, which we talked about earlier. I don't think it's that new of a Nintendo.
No, but give it a few years and give it a few more of these landscape shifts. And it might make who would have thought they would have put mobile games out?
Yeah.
At a certain point.
Well,
But here
after
we are.
Iwata laid into them for 3 years.
Oh yeah, but
and,
there was a time when that was unthinkable. And
do you
now
remember that year at GDC where he gave that big speech about how mobile's going to end gaming and making mobile game? It was a whole presentation about how mobile gaming was terrible, and the best way for you to ruin your business was to start making mobile games.
Yeah, well, I agree with half of that.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, all that money you can't ignore it.
You can't. Yeah.
And now they're Fire Emblem's doing great, and it's a third revenue stream for them.
Yeah.
And the shareholders can't argue with that.
They can't, but we'll see if Nintendo continues to be that pliable and malleable going forward. I would be surprised if it does, but I don't know. Maybe it's a possibility. But I honestly would never see Nintendo allowing its IP to stream on someone else's hardware, because Nintendo is just so paranoid about piracy. And even though fundamentally it probably is impossible for piracy to spring out of something like that, Nintendo would just be like, wait a minute, our code is out of our control, and we don't like that, ever.
Well, I mean, the history of the company would indicate that, that is not a thing that would happen, but you never know.
The times are a-changing.
Like, you never know, and whether it becomes something that makes sense 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I don't expect to see PlayStation Now on Xbox or Switch.
No, Sony will die before that
on
happens.
that hill.
Yeah, that is
on that hill by itself in isolation. Sony is like the isolationist company now.
Hallucinating cyber world one last time before slipping into the darkness.
So, I don't know. It's been very interesting to watch this sort of metamorphosis of the Xbox brand. And I have to say, sitting here right now, it seems to be the most well-poised for the future.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Microsoft does definitely have a plan.
Yeah. And it seems like it had enacted it as soon as the Xbox One was not going to lead this generation. Which we all realized very quickly.
So right now, I would definitely say that Microsoft is the Cylons. They have a plan.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is, and I don't even really have a guess. But there might be clones coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like multiple Xboxen.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very different for us to be sitting here a year and a half-ish out of a new console generation and to have these questions. Because in the past, it'd just be like, okay, Nintendo's going to make a console, Sony's going to make a console, and Microsoft's going to make a console.
And also, same coming from the original Xbox into the 360 era, Microsoft is always at its most interesting when it's in third place and angry.
No, you're right.
When it's like we're dead last, we got nothing to lose, and we're gonna try something.
Yeah.
The Xbox 360 dragged console gaming into the online world.
Yeah.
By force.
You got to remember though, Microsoft did try to do that with Xbox One. People just rejected the hell out of it.
Didn't work.
They were like, we don't want that.
I think because they were straying too far away from what people wanted to make gaming better.
Yeah.
The problem was, on all the stuff they were proposing for 360 when when Jay Allard sat on that stage in his hoodie sport coat and rapped with the fellow kids about it. Everything he talked about in that presentation was those are all things that would make my experience playing games on this system better.
Yeah.
None of that applied to the Xbox One. It was just there's a whole bunch of terrible ideas for a thing that has nothing to do with gaming. And we just want you to watch ESPN all the time.
Right.
I'm like, no, I don't.
TV.
I don't passing my cable through this thing is not a thing that's exciting to me. I want what
it
am I
was
gonna
exciting
play?
to me at first. I used it for a long time because I liked that I could put the TV over in the corner and still play games, and I could watch a hockey game or a football game while I played games with split screen on my own TV.
Yeah, I never used it because I didn't care, and then. The one time I really used it was one of my friends got it when it came out and hooked everything up, and we were watching football, and the problem was you couldn't talk about the Xbox because if you said Xbox too much, the Kinect would make it do shit. And one point, someone said oh, so the Xbox did that, and it was the last play of the Broncos game, which was the game that my friend was desperately wanting to see, and it was down to the last 30 seconds, and someone said something about the Xbox, and he just started rewinding the live broadcast. We're what? And by the time we got it back, it was over, and it was just no, we're not doing that anymore.
My Xbox still. In fact, the other night I was laying in bed. I had just laid down. Our whole apartment was dead silent, and I hear, "Doink!" And my freaking Xbox just turned on in the middle of the night in the pitch black with no noise. It just goes, "Doink!" And I'm like, "What the hell?"
Xbox Anywhere.
And it
always.
Yeah, and then I have the Kinect. It's I have slots in my entertainment center. So in the left slot is my Xbox One. In the center one is my center channel for surround sound. And as people know, the center channel is where all the dialogue comes from in an 5.1 mix, most of it anyway. And so they're talking right out of that speaker right next to my Kinect. And so all the time, it just kicks on because somebody in a TV show said something that it thought said, hey, wake up. I still have my Kinect hooked up, by the way, to my Xbox One.
I don't even know where my Kinect is.
I am definitely a part of a small group of people, I guarantee.
I will say that whenever I look at my friends list on Xbox One, a lot of people are watching TV. So clearly people still use that.
Netflix.
Whether they've got the Kinect hooked up or not, they are still using it as
going through it, yeah. Some people just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
They set it up and they never touch it again.
To be fair, that's the reason I never did that in my apartment was because the cable connections were all behind the TV. I'm I'm not digging through that just so I can do what? Yell at it?
Yeah,
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But if you have a cleaner setup than I did then, you could do that. But now I don't do it.
It was a novelty. I liked it at first.
Over, yeah.
And once I took out the Kinect, I had to replace my Xbox because it broke. And once I took out the Kinect and used it for a while without it, I was I don't need it. And I just ditched the whole thing. So, interesting times for Microsoft.
Yeah.
I'll say this. It's trying stuff. It's
Yeah.
trying new stuff to see what happens. And when you're in third place, which is really what Microsoft is at this point,
yeah,
you really have nothing left to lose.
Yeah,
so.
I just think their game lineup should start to be as interesting as their tech decisions.
Yeah.
Because Crackdown 3 is not the Games Pass on Switch of game releases.
Well, the other thing too is that before we move on briefly, was that some games are going to be natively ported, according to the rumors. So Ori and the Will of the Wisp would be a native port for Switch. You'd be able to play it on Switch.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yep, they're talking about making a porting Cuphead over to Switch, which also makes a lot of sense. And Pac talked about that in this week's episode as well. By the way, great episode of Pachter Factory. If you haven't watched it, go freaking watch it. But yeah, it seems like Microsoft is more primed for the future than the other two at this point. Of course, that could change like that, but...
Because they got to get back on that hill.
It has to. Yeah. It doesn't have a choice. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a Switch game that I've played in the last week. It is the next big Switch exclusive, although I would, after playing it, I would...
In a Crackdown kind of way.
Yeah, exactly. After playing it, I would maybe pull back on that big descriptor a little bit. And that game is Yoshi's Crafted World.
Yoshi's Flippin' Island, as it will always be.
That's what it should have been known. That's right. Flippin' Island is a much better subtitle. But there is a demo for this on the Switch eShop right now. I don't know. It may have been taken down. I did play this like 4 or 5 days ago. And essentially, it's a one-level demo. They don't really give you a good idea where the level is placed within the world. But essentially, there's 3 different tasks that you can complete on the same level. The first thing I would say about this game that really struck me is that it's so freaking easy. And look, Yoshi games are always easy. They are, I mean, people have tried to say Nintendo's games are kiddie and blah, blah, blah for a long time. If there's one franchise that kind of has earned that moniker or that tag, it is kind of Yoshi.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of Nintendo games, sure, they may be easy to finish if you're a kid or whatever, but there's always parts of the game that still make you flex your skills and require high-level play to get through. Yoshi games really haven't been that way. Usually what Yoshi games do is they're like, hey, we're going to throw in a couple things that are kind of hard to find if you want to go for that 100%. But the actual gameplay itself isn't that challenging, and that is exactly the case with Yoshi's Crafted World. There is really no fear whatsoever of ever dying in this game. The way that, at least the level that I played worked is, you go into the level, and you can see right here there's a train, and the train is missing like 3 parts. So your first job is to go out into the world and find the missing train parts, come back, reassemble the train, complete the stage. What shocked me about this game is that it's really not a platformer. There's platforms to jump over, but that's not what the crux of the game is. The crux of the game is what you're seeing right now, which is shooting eggs. It's really like a shooter, but like the most simple, like turret gallery shooter you've ever played in your life. It's not like you're evading danger while you're shooting. You're just standing still and choosing targets, basically. And a lot of the quote-unquote skill involved with playing the game is timing the egg tosses. So sometimes the targets or the enemies are way far away. So you have to kind of time that enemy walking into the line of sight with your egg so that they meet up and you can strike. So sometimes it'll use like the levels. Like here, you'll see here in a minute, they have the guy walking through the window. So you have to wait for him to walk through the window before you can fire it. But that's pretty much the game. So you collect coins, you collect hearts to get extra lives, you can collect the sunflowers. I don't know what happens if you collect all those, because on this level I got all but one. But that's pretty much the whole extent of the game. Like you're literally, and there are moments where the egg throwing is a little more active. So eventually, like you'll see, we get on the train, and then the train moves. And while the train is moving and you're riding the train, there's a sunflower that you have to target with an egg while you're moving. And there it gets a little more active, but otherwise, this seems to be a game targeted squarely at children. The one thing I would say that is unique about it is because the whole thing is made with paper craft, there are some pretty cool ideas that they work around the whole perspective thing. Like some stuff looks like it's 2D, but then you walk into it and you realize that that thing that just looked like a beam is actually a ramp that will take you kind of inside a building and up to the roof. So there's kind of some tricks and plays on that. But otherwise, it's really you just walk around. They're like, okay, so after you complete this and you get all the parts, you take it back. Then they're like, okay, now go back into the world and shoot cows. So you go back into the world, and then you're trying to find these little stand-up cow things that you have to shoot. And then you go back, and they're like, hey, find 3 of these little puppies. And it's really just like kind of a scavenger hunt in general. You can use the eggs and the shooting of the eggs to collect stuff. So if you shoot something with an egg, it actually gets added to your inventory. And that's pretty much the game. It's not a very pretty game, The early trailers for this game I thought looked awful. Literally, just one of the worst games that I've seen in a long time. And then over the last 6 months, you could see where they've been doing some stuff to it. Like they added fur shading to Yoshi and some other stuff. Still, though, the game is just really...
Fur shading?
Yeah, there's fur on Yoshi. Yeah, he's furry.
But isn't he a reptile?
He's supposed to be like a dinosaur, isn't he?
Yeah. Or is he supposed to be made of yarn again?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But he's furry. He's got fur. Yeah, you may not see it at 720p.
Or it has to be feathers, really.
Yeah, if it's a dinosaur, it should have feathers, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's... I do not foresee this game doing especially well. I do not foresee it reviewing especially well, and this is my alternate on my fantasy team that I
Really?
thought...
Wow.
Yeah, I thought for sure it would get at least a 75 or an 80. But based upon what I've played so far, I don't see that happening. I think the lack of challenge is really its biggest problem. And maybe this is the first ever level in the game, and
It looks like it probably is. It seems like it's teaching you stuff. It's green.
Yeah,
green.
that's usually a
early levels like to be green.
which is weird, but true.
But it's Nintendo. Nintendo does sometimes do that thing where it's the early stuff is super brain dead easy, and by the end of the game you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So I've never really played a Yoshi game since the original Yoshi's Island.
You haven't played a 3D Yoshi game?
No, I hate Yoshi as a character.
you and Jeff Gerstmann would get along well then.
Something about the Yoshi character just makes me physically angry when I see him. I don't know what it is. I played Yoshi Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, which was good. Good enough for me to tolerate Yoshi, but I will never play a solo Yoshi game just because I have no interest in that character.
The only other element of this game that I haven't mentioned so far is egg management, basically ammo. You always have to worry if you have enough ammo to get through sections of the game, but in addition to using those boxes to get eggs, you can also just swallow enemies and they turn into an egg. So this game put up no resistance for me whatsoever. Some of the level design was kind of clever.
With a demo, you probably don't want to frustrate people. So
yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a fine line to walk. But it was just...
if I download a Yoshi demo, I don't expect it to be the Dark Souls of free giveaways or anything.
Well, like I said, when we started talking about this, Yoshi games are usually very easy. They're also typically the worst selling of all Nintendo first-party games. So, I think...
They?
Yeah.
Why do they keep making them?
Because they sell enough. I'm guessing the team that's working on this is probably 25 or 30 people. From a technical perspective, the visuals are also really, really poor. Just as far as... I saw the frame rate dip a couple times, and the textures are really blurry. That's just starting to really kind of turn into just a Switch thing. That was another issue I had with Pokemon Sword and Shield, but the textures I thought were terrible. But that just might be the Switch has hit its maximum. And that is kind of a thing, though. Once you start going with off-the-shelf parts for your hardware, like the Switch did, there's not a lot of upside there as far as developers really writing to the metal and getting a lot more out of the hardware. A lot of times it's like WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So maybe we've already reached the theoretical maximum of what the Switch can output because this game's coming a couple years into its life cycle. And
Chat's saying that this is Unreal Engine 4. So, yeah, pretty good for a small team to use for something like this.
Yeah. But I am not especially excited for this game. I'm sorry if some of you guys were. I would definitely recommend going and giving this a play if the demo is still up on the eShop, because I think you may save yourself like $50 or $60. I don't know. Obviously, there's a chance if you watch the trailers, there's obviously a lot cooler stuff that comes on later in the game. But I was not that enthused by this first initial taste. And I would contend that the purpose of a demo is to get you excited to buy the game, not to make it easy. And I think it's a line to walk of accessibility versus challenge, particularly with demos. And I think this one definitely veered way too far in the other direction. But we'll see. Obviously, when it comes out, I'll give the whole thing a whirl, and we'll see how it goes. But for now, I think if you're thinking about pre-ordering, you might want to second guess that right now. We'll see. All right, let's move on.
I'm already safe.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe you've never played a 3D. What about the GameCube one? What was that one called? It was before the whole Epic Yarn and all that crap.
No, I don't know.
But I think that
Yoshi's, I don't know. I remember the N64 one, like Yoshi's Egg or something. All I remember about that one is the title screen. It's like the Yoshi's singing, like the Yoshis are singing, and it sounds like they're saying, "Balls, look at my balls."
I missed that somehow.
I can't remember what the name of it's the N64 Yoshi game. Look up the title screen on YouTube and just think, "Balls, look at my balls," and that's totally what they're saying.
The GameCube
and that's
one,
the most entertainment I've ever gotten out of a Yoshi product ever.
Yeah, the GameCube one, it was kind of like this one.
Yoshi's
in fact.
Story. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yoshi's Story.
That's
Thank
what it
you,
was.
Vincent.
What about the GameCube one? Somebody hook us up with that in chat.
There wasn't a GameCube one.
I thought there was. I thought it was the first one
one
with the flutter jump.
I don't remember a GameCube one.
Really? Oh, I think there was.
There was a Yoshi's Island DS?
No. It was the first 3D one with the flutter jump, where he does like the jump and then he does like the run and then goes up like the ramp or whatever. And I thought for sure it was GameCube because I remember it was advertised like at the beginning of the console's life, and it languished on and then didn't come out, and then did, and it was like a 4-hour game.
That sounds familiar, but I don't remember what that was.
Anyway.
I don't remember a Yoshi game on GameCube. I don't.
Interesting. Maybe it was a Wii. No, it wasn't Wii. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base. Or maybe I'm thinking about the N64 game, but what I remember about that was that it was gorgeous. And everybody saw it and was like, oh my God.
Yeah, chat's saying that was the N64 game.
Really? It had the flutter jump.
Yeah. Just always had that, as I recall. Not Mario World, but like as soon as they started doing Yoshi spin-offs, he got that. Because he also had that by the time of Smash Brothers 1.
Oh, you're right.
So
that's true. Yep. Okay. All right, let's move on to our last topic of the episode. And we're going to talk about Anthem. Has to be the most polarizing game to have come out.
The Anthem of deflation.
Yeah. The most polarizing game to have come out in a long time. I have seen lots of heated discussions about this game on SIFTD. I've been a part of some of those heated discussions about it. It just seems like, where do we even start?
Well, we could start with, wow, I should have picked Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, its reviews are terrible.
And I remember for a while that when I started to see, because as soon as I played that demo weekend, I knew it was going to review terribly.
Yeah.
And I remember like right before embargo, there was scores were starting to leak here and there, and I texted you and I was like, man, this thing's gonna end up with like a 70. Like and you're like, no, the previews are huge and great, and then it was even worse than I thought.
Well, the PC version was at like a 60.
Yeah, the PC version was not the version to put the press on.
Yeah,
it turns out.
Do you think that Origins has turned out to be a huge mistake for EA? Because this is a second BioWare game that's got murdered before it ever even got released.
I think Frostbite was a bigger mistake than Origin.
Yeah.
I think you're constantly
But Origin
seeing
is
that.
now giving access to these games early to everybody.
Right, but it's not, it's not
That
early
gives
access. It's not, that's release. They should know that that's what's happening. Like you can't have a broken game 8 days before launch date when your launch date is really the day that the people who are paying you extra money get to play it.
But my point is that you're, and I'm trying to word this correctly, but you're putting it in the hands of people who aren't as experienced with early code, if there's a way.
But that's what I'm saying is like, it's a week early. It shouldn't be early code. It should be the final game, and the final game should work. Like why is 8 days that much of a difference? And if it is, why don't you release it a month later? And then, because you're never recovering from that bad PR, and then you have the balls to call the patch that goes up on the official retail release day 1 patch? No, that's a day 8 patch.
Yeah.
Because the people who have been subscribing to your service played this thing 8 days early or 7 days early, and they've been dealing with this shit, and that counts. And it's really going to count as that word of mouth spreads, and here we are.
I think it's a huge mistake, because you're letting people who don't have a ton of experience playing games, and I mean, you can call it what you want, but the fact of the matter is, it's not its release date yet. These people are getting early access to the game.
But it should be like buying the disc early. It shouldn't be like, here's a broken version of this game, and you're gonna have to wait 7 days, even though you paid extra, to have one that works. Like it boggles my mind.
It does work though. See, that's the thing. That's what I'm getting at. So if
But the
somebody like
improvements
us
they
plays
made-
early code, we know enough. First of all, you knew enough to be like, oh, this is going to review terrible, or
Yeah.
people are going to lay into it during its early access period, which they did. But you're giving code to people who are a part of outrage culture, tend to jump to conclusions, tend to pile on with unfinished software. Now, if we get the unfinished software, we're saying, okay, there's probably going to be a patch on day one. A lot of these issues that people are freaking out about are things that are solved generally very easily. We would not send out the alarm the way that the general public is going to send out the alarm. We would have a little more trepidation with how we looked at the game and any faults that it had a week before it came out. Like the loading times that everyone has been freaking out about. First of all, I don't know why they're freaking out about them, because they're not egregious. They're not good, but they're not egregious.
Well, they're better than they were. I mean...
But again, so you're letting these people play and then go on YouTube and spout off when I played it, they weren't bad.
But that's what I mean is like you're talking about early code, and I'm like, why is a handful of days making that much difference? And if it is that much difference,
server load. You don't know what it's going to...
Server load has nothing to do with not being optimized for a solid state hard drive. Like that was where a lot of the load times are coming from. Was it was not optimized for a normal hard drive. People were timing shit like in the initial release, and they're like, it's taken 2.5 minutes.
Okay,
to
so
get
regardless
places.
of why it's there, the truth is you and I know, because we've been in the industry for a long time, that load times are something that can almost always be improved and can generally be improved very easily and pretty quickly. But when you put the game into and so therefore when we talk about it, we're like, the loads were a little rough. Like, I don't even think I mentioned the loading times when I talked about the beta.
I haven't noticed load times. I mean, I haven't played it. I mean, I played the VIP demo weekend, and then I was out of town when it went live, and I'm not an Origin subscriber, so I didn't get to play it early. So the first time I played the release version of Anthem was Monday night, after it had already been patched once, I think, for a day one thing. The day one patch had already happened, and maybe another thing. I had to patch it when I got back. And I think the load times are noticeable, but like not like crazy ruin the game long. But part of that is, as we mentioned before when you initially got here today, like you and I both look at other things and do other things while games are loading.
So this is what I noticed. So
if
when
you're just sitting there waiting for the game to start, I can see that being a lot more annoying than me looking down at a tablet or waiting until doing something else.
Yeah. So here's what happened. So people are complaining about the loading times. I'm playing the game and I'm like, they're not great, but they're no worse than some of the other games that I've played recently. So I started digging into it, and I started timing them. Like, somebody on the site was like, oh, there's like 3 loads to change your weapon. And I was like, what? No, there's not. There's one, and it's 3 seconds long. So I started going through all that stuff, and I started like timing like the loads, like when you start a mission, how long until you actually start the mission. It's like 90 seconds or whatever. But what I realized in the process of this is I don't pay attention to loading times at all anymore. When a game starts to load, I pick up my cell phone and I start surfing the internet or looking at Twitter. A lot of times the game comes up to play before I'm ready for it to. Because I'm typing something on Twitter or I'm replying to a text message from a friend, and then the game pops up and I have to like throw my phone down and like pick it up. Like, I multitask constantly. That's the way society is today. And I agree with you 1,000%. If you're a person sitting in a room, just you, the controller, and the TV, and you're sitting there watching that bar go up, waiting to play, I can see where you might get annoyed with that. But it's interesting that I just really don't play games like that anymore. Like, I have this other stuff that's going on that I don't even notice load times. So, one, I don't notice them, but 2, I did time them, and generally speaking, they're no worse than any other game as a service.
Yeah, but the initial early first impressions were like,
oh my God, it's like an hour to load, and then I play for 5 seconds.
But they were like, people were, even in the press, were timing the load time, and they're like, okay, so from getting a piece of loot that I want to use to backing out of the mission and going to the vault, to the forge, and equipping it, and it's like 234 like total like load times between those things. And it's like, yeah, that's a lot.
I don't
That's
even
a whole
think about
lot.
doing that though.
Well,
I mean, who would just leave a mission before they completed it to go back to the
because they're
forge to equip a piece of gear? You have to start the whole mission all over again.
Right, but what they're doing is comparing it to how these shooters, these looter shooters, are supposed to work. And
see, I always have a problem with anytime someone says how something is supposed to be or is supposed to work.
Well, because
that's expectations, and I always say this. I look at the game.
I look at the game too, and the way they do it is idiotic. The whole thing is you're picking all these things up, right? Like part of the appeal of these kinds of games is, ooh, what did I get? And like you can't find out, you can't use anything you get until you get back to the end of the mission, or you back out of the mission, or whatever, or you get disconnected and have to go back and
your loadout is permanent till you complete the mission.
And like kind of the part of the fun of like Destiny and stuff like that is like finding new things and swapping them in, unless they're like something you have to decrypt like an engram or whatever.
Right.
But like it still feels like you're weirdly locked into things in this game and like to get out of it, to like readjust it to a way you'd prefer to have it, like you have to jump through a lot of weird loading hoops and sort of changing locations, and they mitigate that a little bit by adding the launch bay. Once you've gotten through a few missions where you just go straight there, it has everything you need. You don't have to wander around Fort Tarsis anymore. Yep. So that's cool. You can actually interact with other people, and you can see each other's mechs. Yep. Which is nice. That was added, I think, in the second demo.
Yeah, I think due to player feedback, actually.
Yeah. The two major feedback additions were that launch bay and the ability to sprint in the city.
Which isn't a sprint at all.
It's still not as fast as it should be, but at least it's faster than the plodding walking that the original demo had.
Yep.
Here's the thing, like, I don't hate this game at all. Like, I enjoy it to some degree.
I actually really like it. I really like playing it.
I like taking off. I like flying around.
Man, it's amazing. The feeling that the sense of inertia, weight, power, it's incredibly innovative to me, that part of the game. The actual playing of it is my favorite game as a service by miles. The problem is, you're not playing it all that much. It seems to me that the missions are way too short. They're
very short and they're very samey. You do the same thing.
There's not enough mission variety. All of them are like, go here.
If I got to follow that damn green radar thing one more time, that little like sonar thing that pops up to show you where stuff is when you're doing the hot cold.
Oh yeah.
Like it's all the time. Like it's like, all right, here's the hot cold part.
Oh, there are 5 mission objectives, and
here's the wave thing where I have to guard the thing while the bar fills up. It's like there's like 4 basic mission things you have to do, and that's it.
Yep.
And like there's
Agreed.
and it never uses the unique elements of the game of the way the character moves. Yes, traversing through the environment is you use the flying and stuff, but like the ability, like at one point in one of the early missions, that you go through these caves and you hit this thing where there's like a generator machine that like short circuits your suit's ability to fly, and your character's like, I can't fly. The flight systems are down. I'm like, who cares? Like I
cared.
I wasn't gonna use it anyway. Right?
I use flight continually, constantly. I never fly from one side of the battlefield to the other constantly.
I never use it.
Why? It's
because
fun.
I don't need it. Because I don't need it.
It's fun.
It's not that fun.
It is so fun. I have fun just flying in this game. Just flying. You don't? You don't get exhilaration when you like swoop down and like you're skimming like an inch off the water and then like it's fun.
Cool. It's cool, but I've played Iron Man before, so it's like I find the mechs kind of boring design-wise. Like I don't feel like they look all that great.
I guess I don't care. It's just
like,
fun to fly. It's fun to fight. It's fun to fly and fight.
Man, you should have played Xenoblade Chronicles X because it's so much better at everything this game does. Like getting into the giant mech, flying through the environment like that, a much more robust and interesting.
I refuse to believe that.
No,
I refuse to believe that.
That is actually what it obviously doesn't look as good because it's
there's no way the feeling of flying in a mech is better in that game than in this game. Like to me, this is groundbreaking stuff.
I think that's nuts.
What?
This is nothing special.
Tell me one thing that's bad about the flying in combat.
It's not bad. It's just it doesn't matter. Is what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter.
No.
It changes the whole game. You're not running around for 20 hours trying to get to the next mission.
I don't understand where you're getting that from.
Watch it right now. It would take you an hour to walk as far as he's flying in like 10 seconds.
Okay,
and the best part about it is you think there's nothing down there, but then when you land over what you think is flyover country, there's stuff all over the place.
Right, but I've played games where I can fly before.
What?
Like Iron Man and Xenoblade Chronicles X, and
dude, those are shadows of this. Shadows.
You've never played Xenoblade Chronicles X.
I have played it. I will admit I did not get to the part where the mech flies
well,
or
that's
a mech
because
flies.
it's like 40 hours.
Right.
I mean,
my point is,
a lot of people didn't
I have
see
a
that.
hard time believing that those controls feel as good as this. I really
I don't
do.
know if the controls feel quite as good, but I had
This is sublime to me.
I had a much better feeling of exploring an alien environment in a mech suit than I do in this. Like, I think the world is close on this, and it's prettier, obviously, because
I'm not
the
even
graphics
talking
are
about
better.
like the world or
But, like,
anything. I'm talking about what it feels like to leave the ground, thrust into the air, fly and soar through the air, fight while you're in the air, and then land in a satisfying massive thud. This game, no game does this. And look, I'm probably a little biased because I love Tribes. And this, to me, is what Tribes 2 should have been. And I think this game would
I can agree with that.
And I think this game would be way better if it was just a shooter and was not a loot shooter or a game as a service. If it just had a great BioWare campaign and then had competitive multiplayer where like teams of 10 take on another team of 10, this game would rock people's worlds. For whatever reason, BioWare decided, or maybe EA decided,
I think
it
EA
has to
decided
be a
is the
game as a
key
service,
phrase here.
and I think it just totally screwed the whole thing up.
Well, see, I don't think it was ever going to be a multiplayer game. Maybe it would have been more successful. I wouldn't have bought it, but because I don't care about that. But like, I think you see the vestiges in this game of what was going to be a really great a really great single-player action shooter RPG by BioWare that has been co-opted into the games as a service model, and it just feels so flattened.
It reminds me a lot
Like-
of the first Destiny.
Yeah, like there is a lot of that but it also has this feeling of like
It hasn't quite
there's
figured out.
there's little things poking through that you think, okay, look at all this lore they built. Look at these characters they designed. Look at these
A lot of wasted work.
kind of the way the world interacts with things and sort of all. But in the end, there's not really anything there, you know. And it feels like it was built for something else, but in the end, they sort of ended up with this bland. Like, bland isn't even the word. Bland. It feels like at some point they're like, everyone, okay, don't get too excited. Just make a Destiny and get it out.
And I don't think that this design aids in BioWare's storytelling.
No, not at all.
Because I really did not care about the story in this hardly at all.
I
wasn't skipping like all the cutscenes, but I was skipping some of them.
I like a lot of the characters, but like they don't do anything, and there's no consequence for anything. And even when they try to fool you with like the dialogue tree, just left or right trigger thing, it doesn't have consequences down the line, of course, but it also like doesn't seem to change the conversation.
No, it doesn't seem to do anything. Like you get those like points towards factions for depending on your answers, and that ultimately is like a multiplier for bonuses when you complete missions.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, it all seems frivolous. Like I just don't think BioWare is a good match for games as a service. I just don't think the kind of games that they create are good for this style of game. I am shocked at how much I love to play this game, though. Because to me, BioWare has never been known as a mechanics studio. It's been an aesthetic studio. They're really good at writing. They're really good at plot. The gameplay has kind of been the necessary evil in BioWare's games in the past. It got better as it inched towards Mass Effect 3.
I mean, to me,
But the combat and the flight in this is just next level shit. And I would love to play some other game in another genre that has that gameplay to it.
I would love to play the game you're describing. It feels like a mod of Andromeda to me. The flying is the best part.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm doing the rest of the time I'm playing.
See, I use flight in combat all the time.
I use it once in a while if I need to get away from a group of guys or something, but I'm playing a storm, which means mostly I'm hovering.
All right. Because you have that shield when you hover.
I have the shield, and the storm can hover longer than the other classes. So that works. The only thing I don't like about the storm is like because you can like cut the jets and just land, or if you just like target the ground, if you run into the ground, they do that landing animation. Yeah. And like the Ranger does the Iron Man, ground pound, but mine just kind of, she kind of teleports back upright and just sort of stands there. It's like, oh, that's not as cool.
You can change that later.
Yeah, I don't have the stuff unlocked to do
And eventually
that yet,
you can
like,
choose what you're landing.
But all of the storms like landing things are all involving sort of the blink teleport thing. It doesn't have I like the Iron Man 3-point landing thing that the Ranger does, and I think that the Colossus does something like that too.
Yep. Look, the game has issues. There's no doubt about it.
But other than that, it's like, you're doing the same stuff as Andromeda. The dodge is the same. The gunplay feels pretty similar, and the shooting was the best part of Andromeda. It's the closest they got to something good. And so it's like it's not like it's terrible. It's just, again, I don't hate the game, and I actually find some of the vitriol aimed against it in terms of the actual gameplay to be a little weird.
Yeah,
because I feel like it's not bad. It's like it's just very thin.
It's this week's target for outrage culture. Every week there has to be something new that everybody has to hate, and everybody has to agree that they all hate, so they can feel like they're a part of a team as they all pile on to something.
Yeah, but I think they're kind of right on this one for the most part. It's very thin. There's no substance there beyond like the really base gameplay ideas.
I guess I just compare it in that sense to other games as a service, and it just feels like the same damn thing to me, which is why I don't like games as a service.
Well, see, because like I guess you're feeling that because of you like the gameplay way better than anyone else I know, and like. Part of my thing with this is like if it was as tight and snappy as Destiny, I would like this a lot more and probably forgive it the flaws easier. But it isn't. It feels like playing Mass Effect Andromeda again, and I didn't particularly enjoy that for a very long time. And adding the traversal and the ability to kind of like be as agile as you are, especially as the Storm and the Interceptor, is great.
I play as the Ranger.
Helps.
I don't even play as the small guys.
But but just the fact that you're doing the same thing over and over again so early on already. I mean, I'm not as far as you are.
I'm pretty much at the end. I played it for like 30 hours at this point, or more.
But already I'm hitting the point where I'm just like, God, I don't.
I mean, but that was the same problem with Destiny. It's the same shit. It's like, go here, kill all these dudes. Go here, protect this guy for 5 minutes while a meteor goes. It's all the same crap. Games as a service, all the frickin' same. Why I like this one is because you fly. To me, that changes everything. It changes every skirmish, every combat sequence that you go through. It just fundamentally changes it. And it's like I'm watching myself fly over all this territory that in all these other games I would be plodding along at like half a mile an hour fighting all these grunts. Like, I love it. I love being able to come to the aid of my teammates like that. Like someone's like, I'm in trouble. Zip, I fly over there and I've got his back. Like right away, it changes everything. I don't understand how you or everyone else can't see that. Being able to fly changes. It does. It absolutely does.
It's just faster travel. It's like, I mean, yeah, the sparrows don't fly in Destiny, but you're still speeding over to somebody and I mean, it's the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
It is the same thing.
It's you flying. Okay, then what's the difference between Iron Man and some superhero who drives around in a car?
Does the car fly?
I gotcha.
Does the car fly?
No,
you didn't get me on anything. Traversal's traversal. It doesn't matter. I mean, I play Lego games where you fly around as Iron Man all the time.
If traversal doesn't matter, that's a crazy statement. Traversal doesn't matter. That makes no sense whatsoever.
I mean, you could be riding a pedal copter that moves the same speed. I mean, it's appealing to me to fly around.
Well, if it was a pedal copter,
like
I'd like it too, as long as I got to move around that quickly and that agilely and felt like I had that much control over it. But I don't care if it's a pedal car, a mech suit, or a pair of wings made out of bed sheets. I don't care. The fact of the matter is you can do it in this game and you can't do it in the other ones. It's a huge thing. And I hope to God that this mechanic doesn't go away and that BioWare makes a real game with it. Because this game,
I don't think flying is going away, no.
No game's done it, though. I mean, why
You've never flown in a video game before?
Not like this?
It's not that different from flying as Iron Man in a Lego game. It's...
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I just played through Lego Marvel Superheroes, and I was doing this all the time.
Look, I agree. It has the boring, same old objectives, just like every other game as a service. I agree that the stories, I wouldn't call it crap, but I would say
story's not terrible.
It's not especially interesting, but
it also doesn't hook you early.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do anything to make you interested in this world.
It doesn't do much late either, to be honest with you.
No, but like early on, I haven't found the reason to care about this world yet. You know what I mean?
I'd agree with that. I don't either. But after that level is loaded in, and until I kill that last enemy, I love this game.
The one thing I will agree with you on is I think the free roam gameplay is the star of the show.
Yep, I think that is what people, and I mentioned that before we recorded. I didn't say it on the show, but yeah, so the free roam in this game is like Destiny. You just go into a big, because I saw a lot of people complaining, it's supposed to be an open world game, and it's not. If you go to free roam, it is.
Yeah,
You're in a big open world.
It's a mingle player. Like, I mean, it's only like 4 people, but like,
and stuff just randomly pops up, and there's events,
world
like
events,
Destiny 2
and the same. Weird bosses pop up, and you get loot for it. I mean, it's a much more immediately satisfying way to play than playing the kind of the droning missions with the same objectives.
And if you're looking for the open world experience, that's where it is.
Yeah.
And the campaign, much to my chagrin, forces you to do this. So. Here's another problem I have with the game is the progression in the game is not very clear what you need to do. Like, what's a main quest? What's a side quest? What do you need to do to keep the main quest going? So I got to this one point where missions just kept popping up, and I just kept completing them. Mm-hmm. And then it got to where there weren't any more. There was no one else to talk to. There was no other icons. I'm like, what the F is going on? Like, I haven't finished the game. And then I started digging through the menus, and it turns out there's a certain point in a campaign where you have to go to the free roam mode. And there's a set of like 4 or 5 missions that you have to complete in free roam before you can pick up and start the campaign again. So I literally finished every single side mission, which if you know me, I complete 30% of side missions usually. I completed all of them in this game. And then realized I needed to go to free roam to complete those, and then started back up with the campaign after that again. So it's a little confusing. If you feel like you're starting to do really petty mission objectives, check out free roam. It probably means that you need to go in there and complete those few quests so you can get on with the main campaign again. But I have plenty of complaints about this game. I just think the actual gameplay is some of the best I've experienced in a really long time. And I just feel like it got wasted. And I agree with what Pachter said. The game should have been delayed 6 months. It probably would have, its review average probably would have went up like 10 points. Like,
I mean, it'll probably be pretty great in a year, but the
like
question,
Destiny was.
Yeah, but the question remains, like, will EA let it live that long?
And will the fans give it a chance? It seemed like Destiny players were open to, okay, this is kind of a new thing. Like, we'll let Bungie figure it out. I don't know if EA and
I think the patience
BioWare
for that
have,
kind of I think the patience for that thing is gone.
Yeah,
in this
I think it might
subgenre.
be.
It's just like
we
all know
where this is headed.
Yeah, we know where this is headed. We all know what Destiny did wrong. We all know what these various games that tried to do this did wrong. So why do you keep doing it that way?
Yeah.
And it really does feel pushed out the door too soon. I mean, if anything proves that, it's the fact that they didn't have the hard drive loading optimized for 8 days before the game officially came out. I mean, it's like, that's crazy. I realize that can't be like a really huge priority when you're trying to get a game launched, but like the fact that like people were like taking a minute to load in that's nuts.
Well, EA obviously forced this one out before the end of the quarter.
And you're still looking at like, I think you saw a lot of interviews come out of DICE where people were kind of finally talking about how Frostbite is a problem.
Yeah.
Amy Hennig.
We actually talked about this before the show too.
Yeah.
And Matt has some really good points about Frostbite.
And like Amy Hennig had, was talking about how like, when they got there to make their Star Wars game with Visceral, like there was no tools to make someone climb over an obstacle in the game.
That's insane.
They had trouble implementing an inventory. Because there were no tools to do that. Because like no game that used it before, they needed that.
Yeah.
And so, and she said that like basically she's like it was a little frustrating that now that the game got canceled because it's a shared engine among the company. There's people at EA who are using the improvements they made to make their games, and they never got to make their game out of it.
Yep.
But like look at like as soon as Frostbite comes into the picture with a lot of these other EA developers, like. It all spirals into the ground.
It starts to get a crap.
Like the Danger Close, that Medal of Honor game, pretty well received, did okay. Moved into Frostbite, like 50-something on Metacritic, bombed, studio closed. The Army of Two guys, they made 40th Day. 40th Day did pretty well. They did that sequel, the third one, whose name I can never frickin' remember. Devil's Cartel. They had to use Frostbite for that. Horrible reviews, bombed, studio closed.
Yeah.
BioWare, one of the greatest RPG companies around, moves to Frostbite for Andromeda. First, like horrible. It's like every time someone jumps to Frostbite,
they close.
Amy Hennig, one of the greatest game writers and designers working in this era of video games, teams up with the guys who made fucking Dead Space.
I know.
work on Frostbite, all goes to
It's
hell.
all over.
Studio closed. Amy
they
Hennig.
suck.
It's like what is going on?
Well,
and
what's the common denominator in all that?
Yeah,
It's Frostbite.
The only common thread of all your unsatisfying relationships is you, and in this case, that's Frostbite. You are Frostbite, and I mean, even in Anthem, like the first cutscene before the first kind of tutorial intro mission. There's frame rate stutters.
Yeah,
it's like how is that happening in a cutscene where you
there aren't even that many cutscenes in the game.
No, and the later ones are even better. But the first impression is just bad.
It is, yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It is a little bewildering. Again, I feel like they could have hired one of us to come in there and work with that team for 6 months and be like, just do this, 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 and this. And you may not think the game will be better that way, but I guarantee you it will be better received.
I mean, I don't
know. Which is
know.
really their problem right now with Origin.
Yeah, I mean,
I have people getting the early access to their games and ragging them.
I have a hard time thinking there weren't people on that team that knew those things.
Yeah,
but
probably right.
I don't think you get to make that call.
Yeah.
In that environment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't have any proof or any kind of inside info on it, but I play this game and I still feel like there's so much work put into the backstory and the lore and everything, and that's just part of BioWare's DNA. But I feel like this was not always supposed to be a Destiny-alike.
Yeah.
I feel like this.
I think it would have been better as not a Destiny-like.
No, for sure. I think this is supposed to be like a third franchise in kind of their traditional RPG, because if Mass Effect Andromeda can play like that, there's no reason another kind of RPG can't play like this.
Yep.
And just you do the story stuff, but this is how it plays when you're in the field. But it got just sort of permutated and flattened out into this games as a service thing, and here we are now. And I wonder if a similar sort of effect was happening with that Star Wars game they tried to move to Vancouver and eventually just had to back off of it.
I wonder too if this universe is strong enough to sustain. Again, before we were recording today, I was talking about how it's so much of a Me Too IP. It's like the first game it's basically Star Wars. Just replace the mechs for Jedis.
Yeah.
The mechs have been disowned and discredited, and it's
really
your job to.
It's really unfortunate that especially the town looks so much like Destiny.
Yeah.
Like with the banners and the thing. I mean, it just feels very samey. It feels like something I've seen before all the time. Even that.
I mean, the
guy.
game feels like it's been focus grouped.
It's just
hell.
Darth Vader in a mech suit. Like, I mean, it's. And like some of the characters I like, some of the stuff. Did you say that the missions that are in the demo are not in the game?
Yeah.
Like that was a pretty involved series of missions.
Yep. And I've not seen it.
Weird.
Yeah. Very weird. So there you go. Those are our final takes on Anthem.
Also, in the whole Frostbite thing, note that Respawn is using the Unreal Engine 4 for Jedi Fallen Order.
Yep. Not using Frostbite.
Respawn don't want a piece of that.
And they have the cachet to be able to say, F you, we're not going to use it. And if Respawn doesn't want to use your engine, maybe it's time to reevaluate.
Especially in the wake of Apex, which also does not use Frostbite.
Yep. And that uses their old Source engine, right?
Yeah, that uses the highly modified Source engine that the Titanfalls run on.
So there you go. That's Anthem. We'll talk about it again if they put out DLC or they make significant changes. Who knows? I guess I would say my final take is that it's not as bad as people would lead you to believe it is. I think if you put say your game eval ratings, if you have story cranked up really high, I would steer clear. This is really, I think, a game that will appeal more to people who just really like to play games and like new interesting mechanics.
It's definitely not something that your BioWare fandom is going to be able to carry you through.
Yep.
It's not. It doesn't give you that experience
Agreed, 1,000,000%.
very well.
But it's also nowhere near as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be.
No, I think a lot
including some of the people on SIFTD who were giving out bad information about this game.
I think a lot of the vitriol just comes from people don't like this format of game, and also like it just feels like so many of the problems are repeat themselves every time someone puts one of these things out, that it's like, at what point can you just let these things bake long enough that they don't launch as a mess?
I think for some people too, it's like that's 2 swings and a miss for BioWare in a row.
Oh yeah.
And I think BioWare has hardcore fans, and I think a lot of those people are feeling a little betrayed, and they're starting to feel like they're losing one of their good friends who's made great games for them all these years. They're not making the games that they want them to make anymore. I think there's just a lot that goes into it. And ultimately, the game is not perfect. It is not a game that deserves like a 9 or higher. It just doesn't. So I think you add all that stuff up and it just turns into a big old shitstorm, and that's what
And again, I don't hate it. Like I feel like it'll be. There's a good game in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can.
I think
pull
it
out.
could easily be or turn into a really good game. But
But it's going to take like
work.
But it also. I mean, it takes it would take an overhaul on the level of like like Warframe.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's there. It can be done.
Yep.
But is EA going to want to do that or move on to its next money-making scheme?
Well, if they keep doing this, there aren't going to be any more money-making schemes.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So I think EA needs to start looking at things a little more long-term. I mean, the amount of money they would have made if they delayed this by 6 months and got everything ironed out and running smooth, they could have made way more money doing that than, let's just move on and release another one that's going to make, we're going to sell 5 million of or whatever. It's, I just think EA is being very short-sighted, which is weird because it wasn't that way when sort of applying Respawn to his catalog.
Sort of, but I mean, they do that. Like the short-sightedness crops up after a couple of entries from the company they bought, and all of a sudden they take them out back and shoot them in the head. You know? I mean, look at like what are you thinking when you dismantle Pandemic like that?
know. I mean,
they didn't even make a bad game. They made a game that didn't sell, but they didn't make a bad. It's like why wouldn't you still want that company in your stable?
That talent.
Yeah, like why are you throwing that away over and over and over again?
Think about how you would have to try to destroy BioWare.
Yeah,
but that's kind of where
we're
getting
there
right now.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy.
God knows what's happened with Dragon Age.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a big part of it. Is that we're all watching BioWare dissolve before our very eyes, and I think everybody is reacting to it in a different way. I think everyone's lashing out a little bit because we're all pissed off about it, but I think everyone's doing it differently. Some people are saying this game sucks and this game's a piece of trash. Some people are directing their ire at EA, kind of the way we are. I think everyone's just kind of scrambling to be like, you can't do this. You can't destroy BioWare. First of all, it should be impossible. They should be bulletproof, but you're proving that they're not, and it's scary. It's like, I understand why people are freaking out, but I do not think you should take it out on the quality or lack thereof of Anthem, albeit the fact that it's not, even by my estimation, it's nowhere near where my expectations were. So,
I mean, I can't believe I picked this thing first.
Yeah, I did in our other SIFTD league. Like, no, I didn't. People passed on it, and then I got it with like the 3rd or 4th pick, and I was like, Anthem 3rd or 4th? Hell yeah.
Yeah, I just thought...
Not so good now, though.
So much seemed to be riding on this, I just thought that they would pull it off.
You'd think that they would have to. It's crazy. And this was BioWare's A-Team. That was really what sold me on it. It's like, okay, Andromeda was kind of schluffed off to their B squad. This is BioWare. It's crazy.
You can only do so much against the machine.
You can. That's true. All right, let's move on to our trailer of the week. We got some requests for trailer of the week this week. People wanted us to show the new Detective Pikachu movie trailer, which is amazing, by the way. Yeah. I never dreamed I'd be excited about that movie, but I am somehow. You should check it out. It's on SIFTD if you want to watch it. But the last time we ran a Detective Pikachu trailer in GameFace, we had huge problems. So copyright strikes and all that, we decided not to run it. Instead, we're going to run the debut trailer for HoloLens 2. Let's go. There you go. $3,500 a headset.
I'll use my friends.
You're not going to be using this, friends.
No.
Do you think that the first HoloLens never really was a consumer product?
No.
It was all for classrooms and things like that. It appears that HoloLens 2 is going to be the same thing, albeit on a pretty incredible scale. Like, that's like society-changing stuff there.
Yeah, you're looking at kind of an early cell phone idea here.
This isn't like... I'm sure people are bummed. This is a video game podcast. People are like, oh, they're not going to make games for it. They're probably right. But, man, the
tech will get there eventually, and you will play games on it. It's just, it takes a while.
Well, I think you see in that trailer the applications have far bigger implications than playing a video game.
Right.
Like, it could change, like, a lot of important parts of our society.
Yeah, but it's like a smartphone. It's like... you can play games on it, but the other things it does is what altered how everybody lives their daily lives in the Western world, basically.
That's definitely gonna have to be a lot cheaper before it alters anyone's daily life. $3,500. It's not a consumer price product.
No, but it's only 3.5 iPhones.
Yeah, I guess at this point you're right. But for our purposes, obviously, there's not. They showed the whole Minecraft thing that never came to fruition. It's like. I think Microsoft, even with HoloLens 2, is we're not even going to bother pushing this to
and you're still looking. I mean, the trailer still doesn't quite. It's improved on the HoloLens 2. It's like the field of view is not what you think it is when you put that thing. Like the field of view used to be like 30%. I think it's a little more.
I think Magic Leap got to like 40, and they were like celebrating.
Yeah,
it's like
that's one of the big. It's like you're seeing everybody like do this whole state so you'd be able to see like part of it.
No, you're literally going like this. Yeah. You're not going like this. You're going like this.
So
yeah. All right, let's get to some questions. EOTL Gaming. You remember from the last episode, we asked everybody to wait till the end of the show to subscribe via Twitch Prime so we could thank you guys. So EOTL Gaming, thank you very much for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Lots of questions in here. Any of you other guys sitting there waiting, send them now so we can thank you right on the air. W. Matthew, got to answer one of his every time. What game in a franchise is your favorite? That is an unpopular choice. For me, Mega Man Battle Network is my favorite Mega Man sub-series.
Dark Souls 2 is my favorite Souls game. Fight me.
I don't know if I have any other controversial that are my favorites. No, maybe. Halo 3 is my favorite Halo. Is that controversial?
I don't think so.
No. Huh.
My favorite Halo is ODST. That's probably a little weird.
Yeah, that's a little against the grain.
I don't think that would start a fight so much as just someone would go, all right.
Yeah. This one isn't my...
But when you say Dark Souls 2 is your favorite Dark Souls game, like, people throw knives at you.
Yeah.
Like, it's widely disliked.
My other example, it isn't my favorite game in the series, but it is a game in the series that I like that a lot of people other hate, and that's Super Mario Sunshine. It's not my favorite, but I really, really like it, and a lot of people hate it. So I guess that's one where I kind of am against the grain a little bit.
I think Sonic the Hedgehog peaked with the first game, and most people think Sonic 2 is the best. So that's a little offbeat, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I could see an argument for both games.
Yeah, but I feel like Sonic 1, the series continually went off into a different direction after that. And I think they nailed it with the first one and have sort of strayed ever since.
Trying to think. I think that might be it for me.
Yeah,
I mean, generally, there's a reason most people hate or love something.
More commonly, my favorites tend to be pretty in alignment, but the games I don't like, there's a lot of games that people praise to the high heavens that I don't think are very good.
Yeah,
which is a different question.
Yeah,
but things I love that other people hate, Dark Souls 2 is the first thing that comes to mind. There's probably some fighting games that you could have that argument over, but I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. It's a positive spin on the whole, like, what do you hate that everybody loves question.
Majora Tom 91, given that development tools have become more democratized, does it even make sense for companies to still make their own proprietary tools given the investment required to build the engine and tools? No.
It depends who you are, I think.
I just think no, in general.
I think Ubisoft would disagree with you. Like, they've got tons
of what? Their own engines and tools?
Yeah, like all the different. They've got what Dunia, and they've got Snowdrop, and they've got at least
Anvil.
Anvil. They've got, I mean, there's a lot of them, and they all seem to work
They do.
together pretty well. And
Yeah.
they don't seem to have a lot of pipeline issues. And so Ubisoft kind of proves it can work, but like maybe
can
they're
work, but-
maybe it's sort of the exception that proves the rule.
I'll put it to you this way. If he had prefaced that by saying, hey, I'm about to start my own development studio, what should I do? I would say absolutely go with middleware tools. Like, do not build your own engine.
Yeah, I mean,
9 times out of 10, it ends up looking worse and running worse.
and having that same look to it, you can always tell Frostbite game.
Yeah. Yeah, I would...
Yeah, if you're not a giant multinational global game publisher, probably don't build your own.
Yeah, not a good idea.
And even then.
Yep. J. Reed Vic 7, it seems like games, especially tentpoles, are increasingly moving away from what games have traditionally been. A compilation of best of moments deemed to be most fun and moving towards more system-driven and simulation-style experience. Your questions are always the longest, J. Reed Vic. What is the future of fun? Maybe you should have wrote that at first. Not being the primary seller of many games in 2019. I don't know if I understand that question.
Yeah, I don't know what moving away from what games have traditionally been means.
Yeah.
Like games are games still. Like
Maybe he's
more
talking about
cinematic
games
stuff,
as a service?
I don't think so. That sounds like more
Games
of
that live on for a long time?
It sounds like the same complaint I've been seeing from people since the letters pages of 1989 game magazines, where they're talking about how Super Mario Brothers is creatively bankrupt and everything's just a clone of Mario now, and like this is the end of the game industry because like there's no creativity anymore and all the good games have already been made. Like there were people writing those letters in before Tetris came out.
Yeah.
It's just like
I know.
it's people that thought once the Sinclair ended, like that was the end of video games. It was a weird. People have always worried that the current crop of video games are not the right ones, or they're changing what fun means. Or it's always just it's never what happened.
Super Cordon Bleu, you must have just tuned into the show. Because his question is, what do you make of all the Nintendo Switch and Microsoft Xbox rumors? Game Pass, Live, we talked about all that. So you have to watch in the archive. Here's one from Vincent. Tiny2K donated $50 in bits. And are you freaking kidding me, dude? Thank you, man. Holy crap. I hope next time you guys can save all this stuff for the end. I know it's hard. Some of you guys can't stay for the whole show. But I hope if you can, that next time you'll save it for the end, because that's incredible. And I would love to recognize you as you do that. I hope you're still even in the chat. I hope you haven't left, Tiny2K. You're awesome. Thank you so, so much. I'm wondering what part of the show decided to give us those bits. I'll have to scroll back up through it and check it out.
I bet it was when you were screaming about flying.
Probably.
Earn
$50.
Earn some $50.
Oh,
my $2.
People can tell when it's real. Congrim1, what are your thoughts on THQ Nordic's PR choice of using 8chan as an AMA platform?
Well, there's unforced errors, and then there's that. Wow.
How does that guy still have a job?
Good. How does anyone on that
Anyone
PR team?
there, anyone who made that decision, how do they still have a job? Like, he should have just, instead of going on Twitter and being like, I was completely ignorant, he should have just been like, I quit. Like,
You'll never find me.
I'm out of here. If they won't fire me, I'm firing myself, because that was one of the dumbest things a PR person could ever do.
Astounding.
Oh my gosh. And
no
surprise that it ended up going awfully.
Oh yeah. And like, what also like, it's like, is there a better there where it's like, did you not know what you're doing? Did you know what you're doing and you lied about it? Did you suddenly realize where you were and you didn't know what to do and you just sort of froze up and kept going? Like, I don't know. Like, there's no, wow. Like, imagine being so bad at PR that you have to write a message clarifying that you do not support white supremacy.
Yeah, I know.
What have you done today that you are in that situation now? It's amazing.
I think we answered your question. I think you know how we feel about that. Yeah, that was some embarrassing stuff right there, man. Holy crap.
And they were doing so well. THQ Nordic.
They're buying studios left and right.
Yeah,
they have like 50 games in development.
Budgeting the stuff right. Darksiders 3 broke even. Like they were yeah, oof. Time to clean house, folks.
Now they're saying Tiny 2K gave us $100. What's the right answer? Either way, holy cow. Thank you so much, man. Really, really appreciate it. I would love to know if you're on Sifted what your screen name is on Sifted so I could thank you personally. You can send me a DM just at Shane on Sifted. I would love to know what your name is on the site. Thank you. Joaquin Dragoon, are you surprised at the rhetoric that gamers have been saying regarding an article from Kotaku about writing about race and gaming? I don't even want to talk about this.
I'm not surprised.
But
I have, let's say, a less than stellar opinion of what most people have their opinion about that thing.
As the owner and founder of Sifted.net, my most depressing day ever on the website was when I read the comments for this article on Sifted. Bar down, no comparison, the most depressing and sad thing I've ever read on a web page at Sifted.net. Not just the comments, but the one-ups that some of those comments got. Yeah.
Not a good look, kids.
Yeah.
But
I'm still mulling over some of that stuff. Some of those comments, some of you people that made those comments, you're not out of the woods yet. I'll tell you that. I've been stewing over this long and hard, and some of y'all may be getting the ban hammer. So I wouldn't rest on your laurels just yet.
Where will we get the nuanced hot takes about racial equality from white men?
Disgusting. It was gross. The worst day on Sifted since it launched. All right.
And that includes the time Marcus didn't show up.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, for E3. That includes when Marcus bailed on E3 the day before E3. Or the morning of E3 it actually was. It wasn't even the day before.
No, I was literally like sitting like, I don't think he's coming.
Yeah, I know. And then he didn't.
No.
Okay, I think that's it for questions. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so they're saying that it was 5,000 bits, which is $50. Whatever. You give us $1 in bits, we're going to be thankful. So 50, over the moon. Please reach out to me on the site. But anyway, we're going to wrap up GameFace 158. Before we go, don't forget, tomorrow, the beginning of a new dawn for Sifted. Our brand new Patreon launches. Hope you guys check it out. Hope maybe you can find some rewards and tiers. Maybe you'll bump up, or maybe you'll just become a patron for the very first time. We took all your input into account before setting all this stuff up, so I hope you guys are ultimately very happy with it. Those of you guys who watch the show on YouTube, go to our Patreon, kick us $1 a month. It's $1 a month, but it would make a world of difference for us. You won't even notice it being deducted from your bank account, I promise. And that would be awesome. If not, if you can't do that, Twitch Prime is there. The directions are down below. It literally takes 1 minute to give us $2.50. If you like GameFace, if you like Pactor Factor, help some brothers out. That's all we ask. So thanks to everybody on the stream. You guys were great. Great questions at the end. Thanks for hanging out with us. GameFace is up and out.